What is up with it today? This is going to be episode 3 of me coaching someone. This is actually a little bit of a newer session. I had a bunch of sessions already queued up for the channel, but I felt like this session in particular had something a lot of those lacked, which was this coachee, Pedro, really wanted us to go as deep as detailed about the whys and the fundamentals as possible. So this is really crazy. We spend the full 2 hour session on two games, basically. Um, there's like one moment where we spend like 20 minutes on a single turn, just talking about all the different options, why we're doing the different things we're doing, the sort of thought process that it really takes to be consistently winning, not just figuring out not just figuring out what you do in one situation, but why you're doing it so we can apply it to a lot of different things. There's a lot of different sections in this video, so I'm going to have some timestamps here on the screen right now. They will also be in the description, so feel free to skip around. I hope you all enjoy watching and have a great rest of your day. Perfect. Awesome. How are you doing today?
Hey, bro. Pretty good. So it's just so strange when you're like I listen to your videos and I study a
Mhm.
lot of your videos. They're great. Thank you very much for doing them. But I feel like just having that one-on-one conversation with a creator is kind of amazing. I see it that way.
Thank you for all the kind words. Thank you for all the kind words. I'm just a dude. I'm just a regular dude, man. I love the game, so definitely no reason to feel any type of way, but I thank you for the kind words.
Well, it's an admiration for what you're trying to do for the community
Mhm,
and what have you achieved.
mhm,
I don't think that there's a ton of creators that
mhm,
do a ton of videos,
mhm,
but in a sense, you provide a kind of information that was lacking,
mhm,
and you do it so consistently,
mhm,
and so imagine all the work that you have to put into it, but that that's what I admire about it, and
mhm.
that's what I feel like. Hey, that deserves respect.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. That's the entire goal of the channel is I felt like there was a huge gap in the community and the content creator space where it was something I really wanted to exist and it just didn't. So I felt like it was about time someone made it exist, you know?
One other thing that I wanted to say, just to end that segment, is that you don't hold your punches.
Hmm.
Mm, I feel like a lot of people try to be um, politically correct all the
Hmm.
time,
Hmm.
which in a game where you win and you lose,
Hmm.
you kind of have to be a little bit rough sometimes and
Hmm.
say the truth. Like,
Hmm.
you win, you're the winner. You lose,
You're
get
the
better.
loser. Yeah, you're the loser.
But I appreciate that. I've, if everything from what I've said,
Hmm.
just never changed that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I gotta be as authentic as possible. Like I've gotten a couple comments of people actually being upset about it, being like particular the NCL, like those are very accomplished, great players. And I've had some comments on those be like, hey, you shouldn't talk badly about these plays or these players. I never try to talk bad about a player, just the plays they're making for,
Correct.
whatever. But like they're like, hey, they're way better than you. Like they have all these accomplishments. Like how dare you like be judging them? And my thought is like, hey man, like, that's kind of what I'm here to do is to critique the plays and like regardless of who you are, whether you're just like some random I've never heard of, or if you're Jonas, if you make a play that I disagree with, I think I should say something.
I just feel like I'm used to it because I'm in the bodybuilding scene.
Mhm.
So even if you're at the top,
Mhm.
you are going to be criticized. Everything that you do is going to be looked in a really fine lens,
Mhm.
and people have to have rough skin to
Mhm.
survive in the industry.
Mhm.
Period. Like,
Yeah.
because it's at the end of the day, you sacrifice so much to be in front of a crowd, and
Mhm.
there's just one winner.
Mhm. Always.
Everybody else lost. Like,
Mhm.
he could be the best looking guy or have the best following. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter. You lost. Shut
Mhm.
the fuck up.
Yeah.
Go try to do it again.
Yeah, you know, go try and be the best you can. Here's all the things that you did wrong that we need to see improve, right?
Correct. And I segment this because I feel like every system has a way of working. If you if you put everything in a telescope, you can find how you got there. And what I see in this game, I've been playing TCG for 1 year,
Mm-hmm.
and this is I don't know anything about TCG.
Mm-hmm.
I was introduced because my fiance knows that I love One Piece,
Mm-hmm.
and she found cards and she's like, "Hey, here, have
Mm-hmm.
something." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay. I don't know what you want me to do with this. Learn, learn." Okay, sure,
Mm-hmm.
but I kept going because I liked the community.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I understood the competitive scene, I was like, this is for me. This is what I like. Uh, I have sucked for so long and I still have so much to learn.
Mm-hmm.
But every single time I talk to someone and I get a little bit better,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I can compare myself from a year where the things that I was doing, I didn't understand what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Or I was a red purple law player
Mm-hmm.
and I had discussions with people like, you don't understand. I'm just better than you. No, dude, the deck does it for you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't understand what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I have a little bit better foundations and I understand how to read like what's happening on a board,
Mm-hmm.
even when I'm just arriving in turn four,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, so I'm a little bit more mature. I think I can have a more grown up conversation, and I need to have a deck that is going to allow me to get to the competitive scene because these guys spend hours playing and they understand how to do it and how to process their thoughts in every single different matchup.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's where I'm like, okay, so how can I achieve that
Mm-hmm.
with a new deck like Dofi
Mm-hmm.
that people already have it kind of like to the T. Like if you don't see this, then you just lose.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to do this, and you need to be thinking about this on turn six,
Mm-hmm.
where he has one life and one blocker, and you have to have these kinds of cards. So you have to set up yourself to get there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not luck. It's what cards are you drawing, and which cards are you throwing to the trash. Well, in my case, when I was playing Lucci, but which cards
Mm-hmm.
are you even when they're attacking you, are you blocking with the card that you need 2, 3 turns in the future?
Mm-hmm.
Those are the things that I'm trying to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
And I I'm here because I didn't want somebody to let me play at the sim with you. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like you are pretty honest in your assessments
Mm-hmm.
and you have that desire that I see in every single video that like I'm just almost there.
Mm-hmm.
X0 is going to be a thing. I know it's
Yeah.
going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't want to talk to somebody that's an X0. I want to
Mm-hmm.
talk to somebody that's X3,
Mm-hmm.
2, and 1.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that I'm progressing from 4, 3, 2, 1, and I'm like, okay, eventually
Mm-hmm.
it will happen.
Mm-hmm.
Time beats everything. But I just need to learn how to go from where I'm at
Mm-hmm.
to X2, where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to get to X0, and then you're going to be like, well, this is what you do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Like,
Mm-hmm.
let's sit down again.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
But I
Mhm,
wanted to create that rapport with someone
mhm,
because I have tried talking to other creators
mhm,
and the way they have walked me through what they do,
mhm,
some of them gave me some helpful advice.
mhm,
Some of them kind of played the game for me and I didn't want to do that.
mhm,
I kind of wanted to know the process thought and that's what drove me to you
mhm.
because it's pretty fucking hard to find somebody like you. Just you know, like I in that aspect, I'm not bullshitting you
Mhm,
because everybody thinks like, oh, you just have to do that, and I'm like, sure.
mhm. Yeah, you need to understand like why you're supposed to do that, right? That's the important thing.
Correct.
It doesn't matter if you know what to do in any given situation. There's a million situations. You need to be able to understand why you're doing what in a situation.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's why if next time I wanted you to use this as
Hmm.
a tool because I see this as an opportunity for you to teach more people. That's
Hmm.
why I paid the $40.
Hmm.
That doesn't mean that I don't want to pay the 50 because I feel like you deserve it.
I prefer the 40. Honestly, I prefer being able to make a video out of it.
Because I saw that. I'm like, I want this to be a teachable moment for
Hmm.
people and to understand what I'm doing right now.
Hmm. Really, the only reason I even offer the coaching, to be completely honest, is because like I want to be able to make a video out of it. To be completely
Correct.
honest, like the money is fine, the money is whatever, but it's like it's really like I want to be able to like make a video out of it. I have like a bunch of them backlogged right now. I'm kind of like trying to sort out which ones I want to post and when. Um, but yeah, for me, it's about the content because really, like my main mission, my main goal is like I feel like there's such a lack of good educational content on in the space, especially that's free. Like most things are, locked behind a Medify, and that's awesome. Like I have no problem with anyone getting money. Like obviously, like you're paying me for this, but I think it's really important that there's free stuff as well.
I think it's supply and demand.
Hmm.
And because I've been watching your videos and studying the way you talk
Hmm.
and think, I don't think that you're looking this at the short term goal. Like everybody wants 100 students.
Hmm.
You want those 10 students that are going to be like, hey, we're going to pay you $1,000 to sit down with us and teach us. And you'll be like, okay, I'm going to just do this for the weekend and you're going to sit down and talk about it. And they're going to pay it because you're worth it. Like you did the groundwork and you have a bunch of people wanting to be with you. It's supply and demand at the end of the day.
Hmm.
And everybody's wants to be taught by the best.
For sure.
But at the end of the day, how do I know that you're the best at teaching?
Hmm. Yeah, you can
And
be
that's what you're
phenomenal at
proving
the game, but if you don't
and playing.
understand
Yeah,
how to convey it, like it doesn't matter, right?
correct.
Hmm.
And that what you're doing is fantastic. I applaud it and I see the vision. I do. I want to put my little grain of salt in that road that you have because I know that you're going to get it.
Well, again, I absolutely appreciate all the kind words. It means a lot. Thank you. But let's try and dive into helping you on your journey. Let's
Yes, sir.
let's dive into that. What? So how long have you been trying to play Doflamingo exactly?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay, okay. So you're still pretty new at it.
So
Mm-hmm.
so I grabbed the deck
Mm-hmm.
the first time all the when OP9 started. I grabbed the deck. I played it uh, without thinking, and I beat a couple of my friends, and they're like, "This deck sucks," and I didn't want to say anything, but it's like I don't want to touch it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the deck is doing everything for me. I don't think I'm thinking a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I grabbed Lucci and I buckled down and I tried to do everything I could with Lucci,
Mm-hmm.
but I felt like I was limited
Mm-hmm.
in a sense. So now that I'm like, okay, I tried and I failed.
Mm-hmm.
So let me try something a little bit different. And I've been playing in the sim first, and it was rough. It was really rough. Then I took it to locals, and it was rough.
Mm-hmm.
I, I thought that, oh, I beat at the beginning of the meta a couple of my friends. Now they understand the deck and they can play around it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then I started playing the ladder,
Mm-hmm.
and the more I played, the more I lost, and it got me to a point that I got, okay, I'm gonna read, I'm going to listen, and I'm going to really study about this shit because
Mm-hmm.
I can't be losing like this.
Yeah.
So I took it to lately. I went to two locals in
Mm-hmm.
the past 2 weeks. I took first in every single one of them,
Nice.
and then I got into the sim, and then it just started clicking. But it
Mm-hmm.
started clicking the first moment I did this combo. I played Blackbeard,
Mm-hmm.
got the Weeble, 7, play the Weeble, defended the Weeble, attacked 6 with the Weevil, and then all of a sudden I played the Law.
Mhm.
And I bounced the Weevil, and then I swing against 7, and it just clicked. It
Mhm.
just, something about the deck just like, oh, and I don't have to be swinging at life all the time. I could be controlling a little bit the board if I wanted to.
Mhm.
And then things just started clicking, and then I started winning more consistently.
Mhm.
The amount of times I lost to Shanks was ridiculous. I was so pissed. I was just like, I play Shanks with my fiance,
Mhm.
and I just got frustrated.
Mhm.
But then I kept understanding what I needed to do. I watched more videos, and then like lately the matches against Shanks have been really consistent.
Mhm.
There's a match that I played against the Sioux. It's kind of weird. They built the deck like a Sora,
Mhm.
so the
Yeah,
early
yeah,
game is
with the
with the
animals.
chopper.
Mhm.
Yes, and then late game they threw a couple of the big bodies, but that was a match that I wanted to show you because I won it, but it wasn't as smooth as I usually am right now against Shanks.
Mhm.
So the same with Blackbeard. I understood that Blackbeard is able to beat Dofi.
Mhm.
I felt like it was a free matchup.
Mhm.
It's not. You
Mhm.
have to be careful to not uh, kill your bodies with by just swinging at them and then triggering their them finger pistols and
Mhm.
then just allowing them to build the combo of the 2 costs, the one that you rest and KOs 1 cost,
Mhm.
and then with the Laboons and the Ben Beckers. I cannot just allow them to freely do that because then I don't have a board, and then when they start playing teaches, if I don't have femur, I kind of lose,
Yeah.
and that was surprising for me. I was like, oh, the same with BY Luffy. The BY Luffy matchup, I haven't cracked it.
Mhm.
Bonnie, I have beaten Bonnies, but I don't think that they were good Bonnie players, and that's the other thing. Like in the sim, there's a lot of okay players,
Mhm.
and here in Virginia, the people that go to my locals, they all of them are regionals, top 16s, top
Mhm.
64s, some national players.
Mhm.
So when I play against a national player that's a Bonnie, it's completely different than playing against a Bonnie from the sim.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm good or I'm just coping because those guys, when I face them, it's
Mhm.
completely different. The
Yeah.
outcome is
Mhm.
so it's. I think if I understand how to think at the beginning, what kind
Mhm.
of hands I have to be looking at,
Mhm.
how do I have to implement my strategy
Mhm.
in each kind of the different meta
Mhm.
matchups, then it's all about just practicing. So it becomes something that's just uh, a reflex for me. So
Mhm.
that's why I wanted to sit down with you because I think you have more experience in that aspect,
Mhm.
and I know it's not going to be 2 hours
Mhm.
because there's a lot of people in the meta right now. So
Mhm.
I know that you gave me today, but the next time you come back from your trip with your
Mhm.
girlfriend, then we can
Mhm.
sit down again and review the ones that we don't talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I wish there were more losses for us to go over because there is only the one. And reading over,
Yeah.
like the things you said you wanted to talk about, like Lucci, you said I don't know why I can't beat him yet, even though I know what to do. Um, like I would say that's a matchup that's very 50-50. So if you're not able to get around a 50% win rate, there's probably something that you don't know you're doing wrong. To be honest. So it's unfortunate that we don't have a replay of Lucci because I would have loved for us to go over that. Um, but like general game plan, I guess there's like, 7, 8 decks generally. Is there any of them that you feel like maybe you don't completely feel like you grasp the game plan that you want us to talk about? Like you said for Bonnie, you said you kind of wanted to work on that one. I don't know if you want us to go over the game plan a little bit before we watch the game, or like, is there anything where you're like, I'm not sure I fully understand the game plan?
Let me write a couple of things here in a
Mhm.
notepad. All right. So Uh, Things that I don't understand is, I'll give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
If I go against Bonnie,
Mm-hmm.
and I usually take first in
Mm-hmm.
every single one of the that for me is the best aggressive move. If I go
Mm-hmm.
second, then I like to mulligan for a Jinbei or a Boa,
Mm-hmm.
or something that I need that for a turn. I
Mm-hmm.
have six dog.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but aside of that, that's the limited of my imagination with the deck.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think I don't see further than that,
Mm-hmm.
because then when I get to 8 dawn or when I get to 10 dawn, that's when I think I start misplaying a lot,
Mm-hmm.
because I kind of do unnecessarily choices
Mm-hmm.
of aggression or setting up,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm so used to setting up the board.
Mm-hmm.
I come from the starter deck Luffy, the
Mm-hmm.
14,
Mm-hmm.
which I needed to set up my whole board, lose all my life, and then all of a sudden you're like, you're dead.
Mm-hmm.
No, you have still life. No, 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 you're dead. I
Mm-hmm.
have 10 cards in hand. I have a gecko and I have a jack and I have two blockers and I have a laboon.
Yeah.
You're dead.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to destroy your board and I'm going to start attacking you. So that's my mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a very control player.
Mm-hmm.
Being an aggressive player is a different kind of
Very different.
mentality.
Mm-hmm. Very different.
And that's where I lack experience,
Mm-hmm.
because like I said, I'm like, okay, so if I hit here, I want to see how many cards he's going to give me, instead of like, how much do I need in order to get to win the game?
Mm-hmm.
Because I need to end this. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where I feel like Bonnie and L and sometimes BY Luffy and sometimes Shanks,
Mm-hmm.
they kind of play around me, because when they get to 10 Dawn, it's now you're in my turf.
Mm-hmm.
Now I do what I want. But when I'm in my realm in the early games, if I don't set the aggression or the tempo,
Mm-hmm.
then I allow them to play around with me at the end,
Mm-hmm.
and I need to fix that.
Just for clarification's sake, because I do agree with you that Dofi wants to go first into a vast majority of the meta. Is there anything you do choose second verse?
Um, was the I think so. BY, I
Mm-hmm.
go. I like to go first against BY.
Mm-hmm.
I like to go first against Shanks, Pluffy first, Lucci first, and now I do go first.
Mm-hmm.
Bonnie first. If I see, uh, uh, what's her name? Red, yellow, Bello Betty, I go first.
Mm-hmm.
Blackbeard, I like to go second with Blackbeard,
Mm-hmm.
but a friend of mine that's a Blackbeard main, he
Mm-hmm.
was like, no, I want to go first,
Mm-hmm.
so you should go first. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, uh, uh, sure, I don't know what to do at this point. I beat Blackbeard when I go second,
Mm-hmm.
but I will try first.
Mm-hmm.
And what else?
Did
Purple,
they
black, Luffy.
did they explain to you at all uh why they prefer
Why?
first? I agree with them, but I just want to know like
So
mm-hmm.
their curve is
Mm-hmm.
first on the searcher,
Mm-hmm.
third on
Dot Q.
the dog queue,
Mm-hmm.
or they tech the brook.
Mm-hmm.
Five dawn, if they have the Ben Augur or the Laboon, they start popping things.
Mm-hmm.
And then seven dawn Jack.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for them, it's like, if I get here and I place the Jack, then I'm pretty safe,
Mm-hmm.
because at that point I would have 3 or 2 lives if you're not concentrating on all your firepower at my life.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay. So, and we tested it.
Mm-hmm.
And he did run that lineup and he did beat me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's kind of why he was like, you should take first.
Mm-hmm. I do. I think that's a really important thing to understand is like when you play a deck like Doflamingo. So there's a most of the decks in the game they have like a curve that they want to hit. They Pluffy they want to go 4 Zoro, 7 Luffy Taro, 9 mom, right? They have like a very specific curve that they want to hit. Even like Lucci, you really want to play Jack on 7, Moria on 9. Bonnie wants to play Cavendish 5, Carrot 7, Kid 9. Most of these decks have like very specific curves. They need to play very specific cards on very specific turns. Um, and as a deck like Doflamingo or RP Law was like this a lot as well back in the day,
Mhm.
you have the flexibility where it doesn't matter if you go first or second. So oftentimes in certain matchups, like Bonnie's the big one. Like it's nice being able to go first because it does help you be more aggressive. But really, the reason why you want to go first is because you want to steal their curve. Kind of same thing with Blackbeard, where your friend was absolutely right. The worst thing that can happen to you as the Dofi player is that they go Lafitte into Doc Q into Van Auger into Jack. Like if they do that, it's really hard to win. So going first and stealing that curve is just really good. Um, so I will say that's like an important thing to keep in mind. It's not going to translate to every deck you ever play in the future. Because again,
Mhm.
most decks do have a hard curve. So in the future, you'll probably play decks that do have a hard curve and you won't get that ability to just steal whatever your opponent wants. But being able to steal your opponent's curve is really impactful in decks that can't do it. Like a couple decks that you said that I disagree with a little bit on the order. Um, like Anel and BY, I prefer second. Um, I think with BY specifically, going first um, can have a higher ceiling because um, like ultimately you want the game to end kind of fast first BY. You want to pressure them, pressure their hand, go wide. But the thing about that is the deck is a lot less consistent when it's going first versus BY in that situation. Whereas when you go second, you get to keep a lot more hands. Like you can keep things like double Sengoku hands. You can kind of go wide a little bit easier by playing Jinbei on 4. Um, Also, what it does is it steals that curve from them. They're going to get to play Gecko one turn later, which for them is a huge deal because Gecko is so important to them that preventing them from playing it for one extra turn is a big deal. They don't get to play Kuzan on 4. Just they don't get to play a 5 drop on 6. Like a 5 drop on 5 is a lot worse than a 5 drop on 6 because if they play a 5 drop on 5, we just Jozu it and that feels really bad for them. So like the really good BY players actually don't even play a 5 drop on 5. They play Kuzan. Because it's so punishing to play like a fist Luffy on 5 and then have the opponent Jozu it. So being able to steal that curve versus BY I think is important. Anel, I think we also want to go second. Just being able to play our characters standing. The thing is, we don't need to like you can't really rush down an L, so the general curve of going first of like, hey, I'm gonna swing sevens at you over and over every turn, like it just doesn't work. Like you have to go wide, and you want to get into a position where you have like 4 or 5 standing characters, and then then really start pressuring them. But everything else, I think I agree with you about going first. Like you want to go first versus Bonnie, you want to go first versus Pluffy, you want to go first versus Shanks, you want to go first versus Lucci. You didn't mention the mirror though. Do you prefer first or second in the mirror?
So this is a little bit of a weird take, but I like to take second,
I don't think that's weird
and
at all. I'd prefer second as well.
because I was listening to the regional winner of Italy,
Mm-hmm.
that he has such a weird list where he
Mm-hmm.
had the zero cost event, he had the Kaya, and
Mm-hmm.
he had the Kaido,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the things that he was talking about is that every single time he was going against Dofi, he realized that he was losing dice, so everybody was going first. But when he slowed down for a little bit and then they swinged at him and he got 2 more cards,
Mm-hmm.
he was able to play more cards and then bounce things out.
Mm-hmm.
That way he was going to putting them as fast as he could.
Mm-hmm.
But if they were low hand size, then that
Mm-hmm.
was better for him because he was just using the 2K counters to keep their board alive and just swing at their board where they did not have any kind of board.
Mm-hmm.
So I implemented that against in the last locals that I went,
Mm-hmm.
and I did beat Miro.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but when I do it on the sim,
Mm-hmm.
it's a 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
If they take first or they take, I prefer just to take second and try to figure out because they're always going to try to bounce my board, and that's another matchup that I need a lot of improvement because I'm going to be seeing it a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a bit of a shame that we don't have any mirror to go over because I actually do think the mirror is very skillful. I think the better players should win probably somewhere around 70 to 75% of the time, honestly. Um, and it's also really good at like teaching fundamentals. So it's a shame that you don't have any replays here of the mirror, but again, next time maybe we can go over that. But I
Yes.
agree, you absolutely want to go second. It's a situation of your opponent's going to go first, they're going to try and aggro you down. You just have to slow them down a bit, take away their cards, and eventually you'll be able to flip it where you're in a really good position. It can be scary at times if you don't find things like removal, like Bounce Law, Jozu, Gravity Blade, or if you don't draw 2Ks. Like, if any of those things happen, it can be a little scary, but I think second for sure is a bit better. But it's not the end of the world if you go first.
I think I've heard it from you in several of your videos, but it's when you're in the mirror and you don't get the Blackbeard early,
Mm-hmm.
it is that's where you're like, should I play this Blackbeard right now if I have 8 Dawn or 10 Dawn?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, how can I play around a couple of the things? And it does help to ask those questions,
Mm-hmm.
and that was one of the things that I wanted to bring because those questions I don't have them installed in my head
Mm-hmm.
where in my head there are questions like should I use the Tempest Kick or should I use the Ice Age or how should I wait? How can I use my resources a little bit better? Because I know that when he plays a big body, I need this Ice Age, so I should not use it early on.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I alleviate the pressure right now, it allows me to breathe a little bit through the game to where I can find more resources to KO their board.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have that kind of thought process with
Mm-hmm.
Dofi,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been testing it because when I do searches with Perona or Boa, I didn't bottom deck the cards
Mm-hmm.
at the
It's
beginning,
so important. It's so
uh,
important.
and now I ask the question every single time I see those 5 cards or those
Mm-hmm.
3. Will they make a difference in this game?
Mm-hmm.
No, they go down. I really
Yep.
don't care. I'm looking for the card that would allow me to really make a difference.
It's
A
so
bounce law,
important. It's so important.
a djembe, or like even sometimes I see a Josu and I'm like, I think I want to draw the Josu because next turn this could help me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but um, but those are like the things that I wanted to talk about because I felt that's the essence of the deck. That if I don't have it, that's the fundamentals. I cannot just go into well, this is the play that you're gonna do, Pedro. This is the secret sauce.
Mm-hmm.
uh,
It's
you
all
need to
about
understand.
understanding the why. The
Yeah,
why is the important.
exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. Is there any other like theory or general questions you wanted to talk about before we dive into the
Yeah.
gameplay and we can start really talking about the different whys?
I did have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that I was in disagreement with Jonas when he took out the Josus and
Mm-hmm.
he didn't want to play them.
Mm-hmm.
I was in disagreement. I felt like the Josu was a really good
Mm-hmm.
tech, even if you have it at 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
But then you brought back the 2 cost law, the 2K counter
Mm-hmm.
law
The 2K.
that the 2K, and I tested it out today
Mm-hmm.
in the videos,
Mm-hmm.
which I was testing it out at the beginning, and I really liked the card, but because everybody took it out and they
Mm-hmm.
just played with the crocodiles
Mm-hmm. And the law and the Mihawks and yeah.
and the Mihawks, I'm like, okay, I want consistency,
Mm-hmm.
and but at the end, I'm searching not for Baroque's works or anything else. I'm searching for seven warlords of the sea. So if I find it, or if I see it in a Perona search and they have seven cards,
Mm-hmm.
it's just such a helpful card.
Mm-hmm.
They are going to bottom deck a card, so I
Mm-hmm.
get rid of a card and I get a 2K counter back to my hand.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what what was your thought process on adding that card back?
Yeah, so I've always been a big fan of it. Like when I first started playing Dofi in 8.5, I felt like it was the second best 2K. I do think it's a little worse now because things have shifted a bit. Like it's the worst 2K versus things like Blackbeard, things like Shanks. It's lost some value for sure. But I've always been a big fan of the card, and the thing is, I kind of don't have super strong feelings about the 2K lineup. I think anywhere from 10 to 12 is pretty reasonable. I personally like 11 right now. But I think really the only thing that super matters is I think you should be playing 4 buggy. I think 4 buggy is mandatory. And then the other 6 to 8 that you play, I think are kind of player preference. I think they all come up in different spots, which is actually why I prefer 2-2-2 or 2-2-3. Um, is I think the law is really great in certain situations where like you can hit it off leader skill, and then by doing that you get to draw a 2K and rip your opponent a card from their hand, because a lot of situations versus a lot of decks your opponent will be trying to starve you. So by being able to leader skill into something that they don't get to swing at, and instead I get the draw and they lose a card, I think there's certain spots where that's really nice. um, just and even there's some spots where like you have teach on board, and you're on 5 dawn, and let's say you have like a weevil and you have a 2K in your hand, right? Like obviously you're going to play the weevil, and then the second thing that you play, you're not that thrilled to put a Mihawk in play, you're not that thrilled to put a crocodile in play. In those sorts of
Right.
situations, I'm perfectly content stacking the 2K law. Now I'm
Mm,
swinging 7, and it's putting the opponent in a really uncomfortable position, right? Where they're now going to lose a card. And that way I'm also not putting anything sideways. So now, they want to starve me. I'm at 5 life. Now they have to swing at my life instead, and I get that extra card. Um, so I like it, but honestly, I don't have like super strong feelings on the 2K lineup. I think it's kind of personal preference. To be honest, I kind of think for the most part it doesn't matter. I think the percentage of games that you're winning or losing because you played this specific 2K, like it almost never comes up, honestly. So it's not something I think is too important, but it is my preference to run kind of a more diverse setup of 2Ks rather than like a more consistent of like 4 of the ones that are like quote unquote the best. Because the deck sees so many cards over the course of the game with Sengoku, with Perona, with Boa, I like having just a diverse set of options so I can kind of respond depending on the game.
that makes sense why um, the gecko becomes so useful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, late the later you play, the especially if you at the beginning don't see a Jinbei and they KO your Jinbei, and then all of a sudden you see the, the gecko, and you can play the gecko. And if you have a Blackbeard on board, you can just use leader ability at 5 dawn, play again the Jinbei,
Mm-hmm.
and bring another card. That way you put a lot more pressure. Now you have 3 cards on board, and those are the little things that I'm seeing
Mm-hmm.
and in understanding. Okay, so these are setup plays that I have to understand and why to understand it. but I also don't want to. I see that every single time a Dofi gets really low in hands.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I'm like, okay, this is where I can win as a black player.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of why I do not allow. I let him. I let a lot of hits go, and the ones that I try to be more careful, because a 5K swing
Mm-hmm.
to life. If I have 5 life, yeah, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're gonna keep doing that, and later on I will not have enough counter to do this kind of defense play, and I don't have boas,
Mm-hmm.
that's where I have to be careful when to take life.
Mm-hmm.
The diverse of options, I completely understand it. Now it makes a lot more sense about the 2K law, and if then playing three instead of two would be something. I think that's the flavor of each player,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a lot more. Like you said, it's a better option to play that law, bounce it back to hand when you're swinging seven, than playing a crocodile
Yeah.
or playing, because you're going to lose the 2K counter
Mm-hmm.
and you're not going to get it back in hand. So that's a great way of thinking. I was just writing that down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like it personally. I understand why most people don't play it, and I don't think it's like wrong that they don't play it, but I'm a fan for sure. I think it comes up.
So other texts, like for example, the 7 cost Dofi, or the
Mm-hmm.
9 cost Mihawk,
Mm-hmm.
or even the 10 cost Shanks,
Mm-hmm.
do you feel like it's just people trying to give their own flavor, or even the 2 cost event that gives
Hound Blaze.
plus 3,000 and
Mm-hmm.
Hamlays? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that that's just another flavor that people want to, but they're just deviating a little bit from just this is the basics. The basics work.
Mm-hmm.
You're just trying to sparkle around and make it seem like there's something that we don't know.
Yeah. So I think to go through like all of those, I think like the 7 drop Doflamingo I have personally always felt was bad. Like around 8.5 at the start of it, like Clyde Jackson Juan, he kind of gaslit all the community into thinking like maybe it was good because he won a treasure cup with it, and the second I saw it, I was like, no, this card is bad. Like I never believed it would be good. I've always thought it was bad. Mihawk, I think, is a little more interesting. I think Mihawk, I think there's spots where it's good. Um, but like ultimately I'm just not a fan. Like he's a little too expensive. I don't think it's like awful if someone plays it. Like I kind of understand where you might want to. Especially because if no one else is playing Mihawk, your opponents won't be expecting it. And you do get a little bit of win percentage from there will be games where your opponent isn't expecting it, so they play in a way that like gets super hard punished by it. Um, so I think the Mihawk has some merit, but I think ultimately like the list is so strong and so consistent that you just don't really need a bomb like that right now. You don't need to blow out your opponent with something like Mihawk or like Kaido. Um, Kaido is a card that I actually really did love in 8.5. I miss being able to play the draw Kaido. Um, but I think ultimately, like, there's just not enough matchups it's good in right now. Like, BY is one of the matchups where it was really good, but now they play Rygo, so it doesn't really stick. It's not playable versus Blackbeard, obviously. Shanks, it's like, it might actually be playable for Shanks. I haven't really tested it, honestly, but like, I'm not sure it's that great. Same thing with Pluffy. Like, the meta has kind of shifted in a way where I think it's not great for Kaido. The one that I think is most intriguing is the 2 cost Houndblaze. I actually think Houndblaze is a good card. I have tried it a lot, like a lot, a lot, a lot. And I think it's like almost good enough to play. Like if someone puts it in their list, I'm like, I get it. It's strong. It's got its moments. You may have watched my interview with the gentleman who won the Brazilian Treasure Cup playing Houndblaze. He loves it. I get it. It's very strong. Me personally, it's just hard for me to find space in the deck list, and the fact that it's a brick is the part that really was a hang up for me. Like something that I do when I prepare for big events, and I'll even send you a link to this, is what I do is I create a spreadsheet. Um, and so like for Houndblaze, for example, what I did was I created a spreadsheet where I was testing a list where it was Houndblaze versus Jozu. Every single game I played on Sim, what I would do is I would record what I was playing versus, if I won or lost, did I draw Houndblaze? And if I drew Houndblaze, was it good? Did it actually make a difference in the match? Do I wish it was Jozu? And what I found was like, it's not that often that it feels like it's a difference maker, but there are a lot of situations where it's in your hand and you're like, wow, if this just had 1k counter on it. So like maybe in that situation I don't want specifically Jozu, but if that card was Jozu, it would just be a 1k counter, right? So that's something that I look to do whenever I'm trying these different like spicy tech cards, is I try to track it. Like, okay, if it's this card, was it good? Why was it good? Do I wish it was something else, and why? And I think that's really good for trying to figure out if something is like really actually, is it actually good, or is your brain tricking you and only remembering the times where it's really good? Um,
Yeah. Right.
and I do think it can be good. It can be a huge blowout in the mirror. It's like the best card versus Bonnie. It can be good versus Teach and versus BY. It can even be good versus Nell to get rid of the Shirahoshi blocker. Like it absolutely can be good. I like the card. Just for me, ultimately, there's too often where you play versus certain decks and you need the 1K and you don't have it. And it's just tough.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
you are absolutely right about
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
The same goes for um, two gravity blades
Hmm.
instead of one gravity blade and
Hmm.
one red rock.
Hmm.
I I feel like the red rock is good against Bonnie,
Hmm.
and if you need it against Shanks,
Hmm.
but I don't think it's necessary against Shanks. And if you get yourself entangled against a Bonnie that allows, like, gets to play the 8 cost kid,
Hmm.
then I think that you did something wrong
Hmm.
because you got yourself there, and
Hmm.
that's where I'm like, okay, so how do I get myself out of here?
Hmm.
That's 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 where I feel like that's the only time
Hmm.
where the Red Rock would be good,
Hmm.
but I don't know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I hate Red Rock. I think the card is atrocious. I think it's just a bad card, to be completely honest with you. If I was super scared of Bonnie, I wouldn't even play Red Rock. I'd just play Houndblaze, because Houndblaze basically does the same thing of outing the kid, because you just boost your leader by 3k, you bottom deck the Rosinante, and you just swing big into the kid, and it's, basically the same thing. Like they have no counterplay to that. The same way that they don't really have counterplay to the Red Rock. So, um, also, I think you can very
It's cheaper.
frequently. Yeah, it's cheaper. It's more flexible. I
Yeah.
think you can also beat Bonnie pretty consistently without either of those. I think it's probably close to a 50-50. So I'm not that worried about
Um,
having like a tech for Bonnie, especially because Bonnie is like the eighth most represented deck. Like I don't even think I've played Bonnie in any of my last, at least my last two treasure cups, maybe my last three. I don't think I've even played Versaboni, because I mean no one plays it. Like even the super hardcore Bonnie believers, they're not even playing it right now. So for the most part, I mean of course there always will be people who play it, but Bonnie is like, of all the like quote unquote meta decks, I think it's the one that people should spend the least time prepping verse. But they should. It is important to know like the game plan, because it is a skill check deck, where if you misplay into it and you don't know what you should be doing, then like it's very, 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 very losable.
No, I get that. And the other one would be the Rush Usopp, which I think that that's when people are just
They're
not
overcooking.
being serious.
They're
Yeah.
overcooking for sure. They are 100% overcooking.
I
Um, yeah, no, they're
I
overcooking.
I so I while training to try to become a better Lucci player,
Hmm.
I made my fiance play Dofi. I
Hmm.
built the deck for her, and we did all the different Dofis, like the 90% Dofi, the Kaido Dofi, the
Hmm.
bounce, and she loved the freaking what was it? It's there's a 4 cost. Here it is. It's a 3 cost Dofi
Hmm.
that does the same thing as Dofi.
As the leader
But I
skill,
felt
yep.
like it was just yes, which but it was ridiculous.
Hmm.
But she loved the card. I
Hmm.
have just never seen somebody try to do that.
Hmm.
And then the other card is the crocodile.
Hmm.
The 4/5 with 1 counter.
Hmm.
Reveal 1 card from the top of your deck. If you have draw 2 cards and then place 1 card on the top of your
Hmm.
hand of your deck. Uh, it's too expensive.
Hmm.
That way you just do the Blackbeard, and the Blackbeard does kind of the thing.
Hmm.
And drawing cards has never been an issue for this deck.
Hmm.
I think, in my own opinion, especially when you know how to play the Gecko and the
Hmm.
Weevil,
Hmm.
which for me the biggest card in the deck is Weevil.
Hmm.
I I have appreciated this card more than any of the others. Even Jinbei, I think that Jinbei is just like I think I heard it from somebody it's just that Gecko play at 8
Hmm.
that just makes the deck even more broken. But you
Hmm.
can play it at
Yep.
two two Dawn or 4 Dawn or
Hmm.
3 Dawn.
Or 3 dawn. Yeah, you got to play it from the jump.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
What would be that card for you?
mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's actually funny that you mentioned the three drop Doflamingo. I think it was probably about 2 weeks ago. It was like 2 a.m. or something, and I was chatting with Impact and my friend John, who actually just got third at the Treasure Cup that just happened this last weekend. But we were just kind of spitballing ideas like, hey, is there anything that anyone's missing with Doflamingo? And
Yeah,
we came up
exactly.
we came up with this idea of like, what if we play 4 Sengoku and 46 warlords, including all the crocs, all the those 3 drop doflamingos that you were just talking about. And like, what if you just did that and you just blind leader skill every single turn twice, because you do it once with leader and then once with that 3 drop.
Hmm.
And I will say it's by far the most fun version of the deck. Like, it's so fun, and it's also you go plus infinite. Like because you have like 12 cards that generate you cards when they're played between the Croc, the Gecko, and the Weevil. Like, you just always hit those off top, and when you hit those off top, that's a free card that generates you a free card. Like, it goes like plus infinite. However, and I actually think it's not atrocious building the deck like that, because we did spend a day testing it. There are certain matchups where it's like really good. Like, if you play versus like Shanks or Pluffy or like things like that, like, you actually just roll them because you're actually just going like plus infinite every single turn. The problem with the 3 drop Dofi, um, in my experience, was it's a brick, which bricks are awful, but B, it's unplayable in the mirror. It's so bad in the mirror because your opponent, like, theoretically, the best turn to play the 3 drop Dofi would be your 3 Dawn turn. So on 5, you can go double leader skill. But the problem is, if you spend your whole 3 Dawn turn playing the Dofi, it actually just gets bounced. It just gets bounced every time, and you lose the game on the spot. The card is just never going to stick versus a huge percentage of matchups, most namely the Mirror and Lucci. And it's just a brick, so like, you can't really play 4 copies of it. You can't play 3 copies of it. because you're just going to brick on it and you don't have natural ways to unclog your hand outside of like Mihawk or if you teched Kaya, but you can't really tech Kaya in a deck that's playing 3-drop Dofi because 3-drop Dofi wants to be able to blind leader skill. Um, so unfortunately, it's super fun. It's super, super, super fun and it's really cool. And in some matchups, you actually just like they're just unlosable if you build the deck that way, but I think ultimately it's not playable. The Croc I think is more interesting. I love that Croc. I actually think it's a really good card. I think the problem mostly is just space. There is a list from the Treasure Cup this last weekend that got second place playing four of it. And I'm hoping to kind of get in contact with that gentleman and kind of talk about him a little bit, like why he decided to play four of it, because no one really plays it. Um, but for me, I think it's like it's a space thing. Like the card is really good, but it's kind of like the 54th card. It just doesn't make the cut. Um, but if someone wanted to play it, I don't think it's like crazy. It's not crazy at all. Like it's pretty reasonable, honestly. Like I think Houndblaze and Croc are like the two cards where it's like you say Elijah, gun to your head, like what two cards that are currently not in the list would you play right now? Those would be the two cards.
I see, and it's super understandable, but that's kind of like, but what would you get out?
Mm-hmm.
Like, would you not use the gravity blades and
Yes.
take away the Yosus?
Yes.
Because
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of like, that's where I see that it would be reasonable to do it. And I've always wanted to ask you this question.
Mm-hmm.
You hate perfume femur
I hate
with a
it.
passion.
It's awful.
And you just have it there in the deck because people fear it, and you're like, well, it's gonna work for me,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's there or if it's not, and if I use it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Most
Yes.
likely, I'm never gonna use it.
Mm-hmm. So the reason
There are
it's in
two
the
matchups.
mm-hmm. the reason
There
it's
was
in
a match.
mhm.
Oh, sorry. Let me finish the thought.
Okay,
There's
go
a
ahead.
matchup where I trigger it,
Mm-hmm.
and I count the amount of counter that I have in hand, and I trigger the, the femur,
Mm-hmm.
and I draw 2K and wins me the match.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's why it's a good like trigger, even if I don't see. But I think it's only good if it's a trigger, and
Yeah.
obviously if it scares the opponent to not do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
But you were saying, I'm sorry for
Oh
interrupting.
yeah, no worries, no worries. My fault. Yeah, so it's a couple different reasons. First of all, like most like real big events like regionals, they're top cut open deck list. So I think you have to play it because if you don't play it and your opponents know you're not playing it, they can play kind of ignorantly. They can like go to zero and just play like a bunch of blockers and like that's super annoying. So like that's part A. But even in closed decklist tournaments like Treasure Cups, I still elect to play it, even though I hate it. I wish I didn't have to. Pretty much just because of Lucci. I think your win rate versus Lucci just by having Femur in your deck goes up like probably 5+%. Like I think the difference between having it and not having it is like really huge versus Lucci specifically. Lucci is also typically the second most popular deck. It just randomly comes up versus most things. Like it's Omega dead in the mirror most of the time, but like it can win you games versus Shanks. It can win you games versus Pluffy. It can win you games versus Bonnie and Blackbeard. Like it can win you games. I still think it's a card that I wish I didn't have to play, but like unfortunately, I think you just kind of have to.
Yeah. No, and in a lot of the matchups where I have to make the decision to take that last life as a Lucha player, I'm like, if he has the femur, he wins. If he
Yep.
doesn't, I can keep going.
Hmm.
Immediately, he just shows the femur, and I'm like, oh well, fuck me.
Exactly. Exactly. That's why it's important. That's why it's important.
Well, that was kind of a lot of like the questions that I have.
Hmm.
I will ask you this question at the end, so
Hmm.
we can go and talk about the matchups.
Hmm.
But it's how to train to a treasure cup or a big event, because you were saying you have a test group in I do have friends that are good
Mm-hmm.
enough for me to have that test group.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I've never thought of like, hey, let me sit down, talk to them, and try to train for the next regionals. That's going to be in April.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be in Virginia Beach.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wanted to sit down with somebody that is an expert about the deck.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe let's start there, and then I'll figure out the rest. But I know that after a couple of our sessions, then you'll be like, okay, this is what I want you to do
Mm-hmm.
next.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to test this, do this, and we'll review it in the next session. Like
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And I'm giving you all of this information that way you understand how I perceive
Mm-hmm.
training and
Mm-hmm.
coaching and how I like to do things.
Mm-hmm.
That way you're like, okay, this makes sense for me. I will tell him to go this route, or he's just crazy. Let me just redirect him because he's just smoking something that he shouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to come up with like kind of like a training plan, like an idea of like, okay, what are the
Mhm.
things I have to work on and why? Yeah, absolutely.
Correct.
Hmm. Yeah. All right, let's get in a technical play and find out what you gotta work on then. Are you able to see the screen that I'm sharing?
Yes.
Okay. So we're gonna be playing versus Pluffy. You lost the die roll and our opening hand
Mhm.
Teach, Weevil, Mihawk, Sengoku, Jinbei. How are you feeling about this opening hand?
I was feeling really good. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like every single time I see a Jinbei and a Weeble,
Mm-hmm.
it's a great starting. And the Sengoku allows me to search for a Boa if I don't have it, or a Balanced Law. In this case, a Balanced Law would be the card that I need.
Mm-hmm.
And then that Teach, I think it was a solid, good start,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, I think this is actually the nuts. This is crazy. This is so good.
I still lost. Oh my God.
That's okay. That's what we're here for, right? Okay, so
Yes.
here's the two Don turn, and it looks like you're gonna choose to play Sengoku. This is something I see from like actually like 99% of Doflamingo players, and I really disagree with it. I think you want to play in matchups like Pluffy. It's a little different versus things like Lucci, obviously that can remove what you play. Um, but I think playing Teach here on two is actually really good for a few different reasons. Um, you get the Teach on board, which is obviously crazy, and you can always play Sengoku next turn because the reason why playing Sengoku next turn is better than playing Teach next turn is like we're gonna take this life and we're gonna see a card deeper into our deck. So it's just gonna give us a lot more information and a lot more options when we do the search. Does that make sense?
It does make sense
Mm-hmm.
because we're bottom decking cards and we have to have an idea of how many cards are going to be on the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
and which cards we do not want to see on the bottom, but that it's a kind of information gathering
Mm-hmm.
about your deck. I
Mm-hmm.
see. I didn't see it that way before.
Yeah, because like we're always going to take this first life, especially. So it's like knowing what this life is and knowing like what the draw is gives us more information on like what the Sengoku should grab. Um, so like I think playing Teach on two and then Sengoku on four is like significantly better. I think the reason why people generally do Sengoku on two and Teach on four um, is because like people have this weird sense that like if my teach isn't attaching to Rested Dawn, then like they're somehow missing out value or something, but it actually just makes no difference, honestly. So I prefer playing the teach on two. But it's a small thing. It's not like most games you win and lose are not going to be based on where you play the Sengoku, where you play the teach. It's just a small thing I wanted to talk about. I'd normally have us talk about the search, but Boa was literally the only option, so
Yes,
I think that's fair. Um, but like
this is gonna.
even here, like we really wanted to find law off this Sengoku, and like if we had just delayed the Sengoku by one more turn, it's like possible that we get closer to the Sengoku. Oh, this is really weird that he goes double Robin.
Yes.
Hmm. I've I
I was
think
going
I.
to tell you, like, he did something so different that just, it made me, he played it so different
Mm-hmm,
than what I usually am expecting
mm-hmm,
of a Pluffy.
mm-hmm. So here we're on 4 Dawn. Our opponent has done something a little different than we expected, obviously. What's your thought process behind this turn? And what do you think you should be trying to do here?
So, because he is playing a little bit different than what I would expect, and I know that at 6 Dawn I want to do that Jinbei Boa,
Mm-hmm,
I was thinking, well, maybe he wants me to swing tall, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to swing really low. He's going to give me 1 card,
mm-hmm,
or he's going to take a life, or he's going to, I don't think he's going to be like, oh, I'm going to save this blocker
mm-hmm,
for later. So that's why I was like, I'm going to swing 5, see what he does, and then I'm just going to do Jinbei Weevil and get +1 card
mm-hmm,
uh, with the Weevil draw.
mm-hmm. Okay, so you're not wanting to play teach. You just want to swing 5.
Correct.
Okay. So what benefit do you feel like we get as the Doflamingo player by not having the teach on the board?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because you said you
So,
wanted to just swing 5 because you felt like he wanted you to swing big. So let's imagine that's true. I don't even think that's true for the record, but let's imagine that's
okay.
true. Even if that is true, what benefit do we get by not having the teach on the board?
um, I wouldn't know how to answer that question.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. I'm that you got me in the spot.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. I think there's like no benefit to us not playing the teach this turn. I think the only like the real argument for why we wouldn't want to play teach is that if we play teach, our opponent has a sideways character to swing into, being the Jinbei, because we're always playing Jinbei here, of course. The thing about that is like I think that us giving a 1K counter to protect this Jinbei doesn't really matter. Like, we're going to give up a card, but when we give up that card, what that allows us to do is A, we get to swing 8 this turn instead of 3, or 8 instead of 5. And then next turn, we get to swing even more, even bigger, even harder. So, like, we're going to give up 1K because we put this Jinbei sideways, and, like, sure, that's not ideal, but like our opponent is going to give us infinite cards. Like we just absolutely want the teach on board. So like I understand you're thinking like, "Oh, he played these blockers like I'm just going to swing 5. He only has 5 cards in hand. Like it's kind of annoying for him." But like the thing that's actually really annoying for Ploofy is if every single turn we swing 5 sevens. Like the dude's just gonna blow up, right?
Yes.
Especially when we have like such an insane start where we have teach, we have double jinbei, we have the cards that pair with the jinbei. Like if we just swing hard, swing fast, like he's just gonna blow up.
Swing hard, swing fast.
Hmm. So it's like, do you see kind of what I'm thinking there, where it's like we there's there's not really a benefit to swinging 5 here. Does that make sense?
Yes. And in the case of me swinging tall and he
Mm-hmm.
uses the blocker, then he didn't draw a card from life
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't use a card, but he used the blocker, which is going to be essential in the later turns,
Mm-hmm.
which one of those blockers survives. And you'll see how I kind of messed that up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like there's nothing we can really do about these blockers. He's going to get a block on a 7 eventually. It doesn't really matter if it's now or later. So, like, we might as well force him to use it now. So that way later we can, you know, be more aggressive. The only thing that I think is an interesting decision this turn is actually if we should go Jinbei Weevil or Jinbei Boa. I know my thought process for which one we should do, but I'd love to hear kind of what you're thinking and why we might do one or why we might do the other one.
Okay, so if we go into the Weeble, which is the first thing
Mm-hmm.
that comes to mind,
Mm-hmm.
I would draw a card. But if we go into the Boa, then I already know what the first five cards of my deck were, and
Mm-hmm.
I know which ones I bottom deck. The next three cards will be interesting to know, especially because now I'm allowing myself to set up for the next few turns. And by just playing with the Weeble, I still don't know what's in my deck for the next three turns.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be problematic because information gathering in any matchup, especially in Dofi, knowing what the next five cards are, is what makes Dofi even more dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And that's those are like the two ticks that I can see there.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case scenario, I did choose the Weeble because I
Mm-hmm.
just wanted to keep drawing cards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also lean towards Weevil. I think everything you said is right. I think really the piece of the puzzle that maybe I want you to be thinking about more that is important is like, what is the thing that my opponent least wants me to do? What is the thing that when I do it, my opponent is like, dude, that is so annoying. So like in the context of this, like what does your opponent want to do next turn?
He's at four done.
Mm-hmm.
Then he's going to be at six. He could draw a card from left, get to seven, play seven cost Luffy,
Mm-hmm.
and bring a five cost Sanji,
Mm-hmm.
if that's the case,
Mm-hmm.
or a four cost Sorrow.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that playing the four cost Sorrow as a Pluffy against me, Delphi, it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like I'm just gonna bounce him back, and he's not gonna be able to swing. So that allows me to put more pressure into him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think that would be the ideal play for him. Or he could go seven cost Sanji, but
Mm-hmm.
it, like doing that, what would be the benefit of that if he can go wide?
Mm-hmm.
Um, he could rest one of the characters, or in the case of resting the Blackbeard, if I play the Blackbeard, or resting the Jinbei or the Weeble
Mm-hmm.
to put pressure into me. So
Mm-hmm.
that's how I see how he could be played, or the optimal plays that the
Mm-hmm.
Pluffy has
Mm-hmm.
at six dawn.
Yeah, absolutely. He wants to play Luffy Taro here. And the reason why I bring that up is like the reason why Boa could be an option here. This comes up a lot, specifically against Lucci. This is really important because every single card versus Lucci is so important because their entire game plan is like take all of your resources from you. I'm going to take your board away by KOing it, and I'm going to take your hand away by swinging at your rested board so you have to counter to protect. So like I'm going to take every single resource from you over the course of the game. So this what I'm talking about is going to apply a lot to Lucci in particular, but also can apply to all decks, even Pluffy here, where we know because our opponents play these decks that have to do very specific things on very specific turns. Like as you said, the Pluffy only has two options this turn, or he loses the game on the spot. If he doesn't do one of these two options, he loses on the spot. He either has to A, play Luffy Taro, which is what he wants, or B, play Sanji. If he either way, that's a 7 cost, which means he's using all of his Dawn, which means we get a free block with Boa, which saves us a card, which is kind of the same as
Oh,
the Weevil drawing us a card, except it also lets us see the top three from our deck. So like it can help us know like, okay, what am I going to do the following turns? Should I, if they're three bad cards, then we can ship them to the bottom, which is almost better than drawing, because like if we draw a bad card, like we don't care that much. Like we're going to get the draw off the Weevil eventually. So like having the optionality of the Boa is really good. If we had two boas, if we had like two boas and a weevil, I actually think I would prefer playing the boa this turn, because it's going to give us that free block. The reason why I don't love playing the Boa here is that second option that he could do, which is the Sanji. He's gonna play the Sanji, he's gonna rest our Teach, and then he's gonna swing 5 at the Teach and we'll block. That's fine. And then if he has a brain, he'll probably swing 7 at the Teach. And then we just have to give it up. Like, it's just a little bit too expensive to give double 4. And since we don't have a
Yes.
second Boa in our hand, then our 6 Dawn turn is like a lot weaker than it should be. Unless the Boa finds a hit. If the Boa finds a hit, then on our 6 Dawn turn, we could go like 6, 7, 7 leader skill and we'd be fine. But because we have the second Jinbei, we kind of want to be able to like play it from our hand that turn. So because we don't have a second Boa and it's possible he could play the Sanji, I kind of lean towards the Weevil just because our 6 Dawn turn will be kind of weak if he does play the Sanji. But honestly, you could easily make an argument that like if he plays the Sanji, like, hey, we don't care. Like, the Sanji is not a good play for him. Like, he doesn't want to play that. He wants to play the Luffy Taro. So, like, if he wants to play the Sanji and, like, deny himself of, like, the resources he'll get from the Luffy Taro over the course of the game, because Luffy Taro is so good, right? Like, first of all, he gets 2 swings every single turn instead of 1. And then the Sangoro is going to get him a draw every turn. So, like, over the course of the game, the Luffy Taro is going to get him so much value. You could say, hey, I'm okay with him doing the less optimal play. Because, like, if he does do the Luffy Taro play, I think the Boa is better. To be honest, I think the Boa is better if he does the Luffy Taro play. And you could make the concession, like, hey, if he's going to do the Sanji play and take out my Teach, like, that's fine. I don't really care. Like, it's whatever. So that's just kind of like some of the things that like I want to see you thinking about is like, what are all the things that my opponent could do? What do they want to see happen? And how do I do the things that they don't want to see happen? Does that all make
That
sense?
it does completely make sense.
Mm-hmm. So I know we just spent like an unbelievable amount of time on this turn, but I do think it's like it's important to kind of talk about like, okay, why are we doing what we're doing? You know?
And I understand this because in order for us to understand turn 7 or
Mm-hmm.
turn 6, we need to understand how we got there.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way possible is to make sure that at turn 1 and 2, we are setting up a game plan
Mm-hmm.
that allows us to or succeed or fight for the game at the end or fail and say, oh, for if I had a 1K counter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I want to make sure that I don't say the second thing
Mm-hmm.
if I had a 1K counter.
Mm-hmm.
Because then I'm just letting this game be a luck base
Yep.
instead of a skill base.
Yep. And especially with Doflamingo, like Doflamingo is the number one deck that you can't really make excuses. It's so consistent and it has so many options that like if you lose a game, a lot of the time it's your fault. It's because you didn't bottom deck the right thing. It's because you didn't play the right thing. It's because you didn't swing the right numbers at the right times. It's so strong and it has so much optionality that most of the time you lose, it's 100% your fault. Almost always. Almost always. Like the deck is so good. Like
Yes.
even yesterday I went to locals and this was my opening 5 and I still win this game. Gravity Blade, Perfume, Pudding, Teach. And I'm going first. And for turn I drew Jinbei. So like there's nothing to play off the Jinbei. And like I still found a way to win that game because like the deck is just eventually gonna find the good cards. And if you play it correctly and you swing the right numbers and you make your opponent uncomfortable, that's like the max low roll. That is the max low roll. But there's so much skill expression with the deck, and I did get lucky. I will admit I blind leader affected twice and I hit both times, but you need to be able to understand your win conditions and all of that sort of thing. And the deck is like, even at its worst, it's still
You
good
can still
enough.
win.
Yeah, you can still win.
Yes. It reminded me of how Jonas won his pressure cup
Mm-hmm.
last matchup against
Pluffy.
the red purple Luffy.
Mm-hmm.
And when he did the leader effect, it was a Sengoku.
Mm-hmm.
I capture that image in my head because that said, even if you start slow, you can still win.
You can still win.
So just
100%.
just
Yeah.
be patient and do the things right. You
Mm-hmm.
have to play your cards right.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that there's another deck that can do that.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of Doflamingo players get it in their brain where they're like, if I don't hit Jinbei Weevil or Weevil or something crazy on the 3 dawn turn, like I just lose. Like I got so unlucky. Like, oh no, I blind leader skilled and I missed. I just lose on the spot, and they get in their own head. But like, if you really take a moment to step back and think about it, bro, your 3 dawn turn, you're not supposed to be allowed to put 8 dawn on the table. Like that's not something that exists in the game outside of this exact context, and yet decks still win. So like, just because you miss that first turn, it doesn't mean you can't win. Like they're so winnable. Like obviously you want to be able to hit the nuts every single time, but even if you don't, your deck is so good you'll catch back up later. It's all good.
As a side note, do you really think that Doof is going to get hit?
So my original thought, like a few weeks ago, was like it didn't make sense to hit Dofi because at the end of OP10 in the East, Dofi had fallen out of favor. Like they were just playing Teach. Teach was like their best deck, or at least the deck that they were playing that was winning the most flagships. And then in EBO2, Dofi still at the start of it was still kind of out of favor. Like green purple Luffy was winning all of their flagships. So like my original thought was like, hey, Dofi is doing good in '09. Like it's clearly the best deck in '09, but it looks like in 10 and EBO2 that's maybe not the case anymore. So my original thought process was like it doesn't make sense for them to hit Dofi. I don't think they will. However, I have heard from a source that the ban list is not going to include any unhits. So they're not taking anything off of the ban list. They're only going to be putting things on the ban list. So if they're going to be putting things on the ban list, I cannot imagine a world where they don't hit Dofi. Like originally I thought maybe they won't hit anything, they'll just unhit something like maybe Sakazuki or Moby Dick or whatever. Maybe they'll just unhit something. But if they're gonna hit something, it's hard for me to imagine that they don't address Dofi in some way. Which
Then
is
they would have
unfortunate.
to address Blackbeard.
Yeah, they very well might. I'm not as convinced on that one because from like a fiscal standpoint, it doesn't really make sense for them to um, hit a deck that they're like still trying to make money off of, right? Like they still need to print OP10. They still need to print the structure decks that come out in June. Like they still want to make money off Blackbeard, so it doesn't really make sense to like disincentivize the player base to play it. Um, so like they might hit Blackbeard. I see a lot of people say that, but I'm not as convinced with that happening, to be honest.
It could be a simple hit on the stage, which
Hmm.
they have a record of doing that with decks that are doing pretty good.
For sure, for sure, it 100% could happen. I wouldn't be surprised if it happened. I'm just like I'm less sure of it than I am that they'll hit Dofi. Like a few weeks ago, I would have said no. I don't think they will, but I think at this point, given some of the information I've been giving, I think they will be hitting Dofi.
If they do or they don't,
Hmm.
this is still a really good opportunity to learn about one of the best decks
Hmm.
outside of Sakasuki, Red
Hmm.
Purple Law, that
Hmm.
have been printed.
For sure. And I think the thing about Doflamingo is I would actually always encourage people to get coaching for a deck like Doflamingo because it's such a fundamentals based deck. Like there's some decks like Lucci where, to be completely honest, Lucci gets to ignore like 70% of the game. Like you actually just remove everything your opponent plays. You play Gecko Moira, you can play Lucci. You don't have to necessarily like play the hard, gritty one piece of like thinking about like a lot of things that most decks have to think about, like combat math, um, just certain things like that. Lucci's allowed to ignore a lot of those things, whereas like Dofi is kind of the epitome of all those different things. So even if tomorrow Dofi is banned, so many of the skills that you can learn from getting good at Dofi translate. So I
Yes.
definitely, I definitely
No,
always.
and I do agree with that.
Mhm.
I do 100% agree with that.
All right.
But if you want to see,
Yeah.
we do.
Yeah, yeah, I know. We were on this one spot for a long time. Okay, so you do swing five. We kind of discussed why that's not the best. I imagine he's just gonna 1K here. This is pretty free for him. Yeah, 1K. That's fine. Um, he's going to Sanji and take out our Jinbei. When he does this, what are you thinking?
Okay, so you're not going to believe me, but I
Hmm.
was thinking about this so much because I felt, okay, so if I give him a 1K, then
Hmm.
he's going to swing seven. Then I
Hmm.
have to give him two cards.
Hmm.
And my eyes were like, okay, but if I don't give him anything and he swings seven at life, I get a +1.
Hmm.
So I'm just gonna let go because at the next turn I'm gonna be at six, and I could potentially play the gecko at some point,
Hmm.
and then and then get that Jinbe back if I needed it.
Hmm.
That's what I was thinking.
Hmm. Yeah, I completely agree that we let this die. We're pretty happy to go down to two, or go down to three life rather.
Three.
Yeah, down to three life. My apologies. And like also a piece of the puzzle that we didn't talk about, or that you didn't say that I would have liked to hear in your answer is like whenever we're thinking about defending our characters, we always want to think about like the context of like how important is this character and how many cards am I going to get from my opponent? So like here, we know our next turn is like Jinbei Boa, like that's pretty clear. I guess I should have asked you what you plan to do, but I think like we're on 6 Dawn, Jinbei Boa
Yeah.
just makes a ton of sense. Um, so in that case, this Jinbei is only going to swing five. So if we used 3 cards to protect this one Jinbei, that's only going to get 1 card. Like that's just really bad for us. Like it's just very, very
Oh,
deg.
I didn't see that.
Mm-hmm.
I never saw that before.
Mm-hmm.
How many cards does this card is going to take from my
Mm-hmm.
opponent?
Mm-hmm.
I have never thought about that. That is a really good question.
Yeah. I try to always ask yourself that in the early to mid game. I will say that question, just because the answer isn't like equal, like sometimes you will only get less cards than you're gonna give, but there are a lot of situations where you still have to do it, like namely later in the game when you're trying to kill your opponent. Like you might have to give 4 cards to protect something, but if you give those 4 cards you might just win next turn, so you're still supposed to do it. So it's something to have in the toolbox where you think about that, you think about it, but don't let it be like black and white. Like it's one of the
So,
things to think about, but not the only thing.
so I think the best way that I can explain my process thought
Mhm.
is I think about tempo
Mhm.
in this kind of scenario.
Mhm.
So for me, a tempo is the amount of cards that I have in the hand,
Mhm.
which are seven, the
Mhm.
amount of cards that I have in life, which are four, creating a tempo of 11, and the amount of attackers that are in the field that
Mhm.
are able to inflict damage into my opponent. So if I'm counting 7 plus 4, 11, 12, 13. So I have a tempo of 13 compared to his 8, 9 tempo. So I'm really far ahead tempo wise than him. I want to be able to keep myself ahead and keep asking him for cards and keep bringing more value into the field or
Mm-hmm.
in order to keep attacking.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I see it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I learned it. And it just makes completely sense in my head
Mm-hmm.
where I'm trying to always keep myself ahead. Or in the case of like, okay, so how many cards do I have in hand, life, and on the field? Where do I have to attack? Do I want to give him cards or do I want to take cards from his hand?
Mm-hmm.
Um, can I have lethal next turn? Those are like the questions that I'm asking now,
Mm-hmm.
which I didn't ask before.
Mm-hmm.
And that has made a little bit more easier for me to make better decisions.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Not all the time.
I think those are all great things to think about. Okay, so you let this die, I assume. You think about it briefly, which is fine. We always want to think about it. And then we'll take, yep, we found a 2K, that's fine. Wow, we found a third Genbei. I really hope we win this game. Okay, so I assume that you agree with me that this is a really easy Jinbei Boa turn. Yep,
Yes.
yeah.
But I now, yeah.
Hmm. So
Okay.
when you see this stack, what are you thinking?
So I want to use the law
Hmm.
in order to bounce. So I can't use the 2K counter law because technically speaking, I don't have anything to do with him, but I have the bounce law. So if I'm able to bounce one card of my hand, which the Sengoku could be part of that,
Hmm.
I can bounce one of his blockers
Hmm.
back to his hand. And he would have to spend 2 Dawn in order to play that blocker again, or use that blocker to block the attack. If because I was thinking about swinging to the Sanji at that.
Hmm. Hmm. So you want to swing at life or you want to swing at Sanji here?
I wanted to swing at Sanji.
Hmm. Okay, so
That's
why?
kind of my kind of control. I wanted to
Hmm.
control better it's the only attacker, and he has 4 cards in hand.
Hmm.
So those are like little things that I still have
Hmm.
to improve in my
Hmm.
overall game.
So what do you
Think-
think okay, so what do you think the Pluffy wants this game to look like? How do you think the Pluffy player wins? And what do you think he would prefer you swing at?
So it would be easier to defend the Sanji because technically speaking, if I swing 9, he still has one blocker.
Hmm.
Uh, he wants me not to swing at life because then he can use his ability to
Hmm.
draw a card and
Hmm.
get a ramp.
Hmm.
And then eventually, if he gets to 9 Dawn or 10 Dawn, then he can play the Big Mom and he just gets another life and a big body
Hmm.
and gets one card out of my board. So that's kind of what he's always waiting to get to
Hmm.
because that's the tech for Pluffy against Dofi, in
Hmm.
in my opinion. And I think I heard this from you.
Hmm. Yeah, so for sure, the way that most decks, including Pluffy, want to win versus Dofi is like racing Dofi is just not possible. Like no one can race you. It's just not possible. You go too wide, you swing too fast. You get to generate so many resources that there's no deck in the game that can say like, "Hey, I'm gonna race the Doflamingo," which means the way that they have to win the game typically is by establishing, like probably about three real bodies on the board. Whether it be Sanji, Luffy Taros, and Goro, Big Moms, maybe even 9-drop Luffy's, whatever it is. It doesn't even matter the deck. The general way that decks beat Doflamingo is they let the game go on long enough where they're able to establish a bunch of big bodies, take away our board, and then kill us basically in 1 or 2 turns. It's the only way you can beat Doflamingo. Anything else just doesn't work. So because of that, we know the Pluffy player wants the game to go longer, which means he wants us to swing at the Sanji. Like, if we swing at the Sanji, it only takes one card out of his hand to defend. And, like, he is at 4 cards. So, like, him going down to 3 sounds bad, but he's going to draw. He's going to go back up to 4. And he's, like, he's pretty thrilled about the fact that, like, all I had to do to counter out of a 7, instead of giving 2 cards, I only had to give 1. Um, So me personally, I would be swinging at life here. The Sanji isn't like a real threat. Like, there's some things in the game where you want to swing at them because um like they're going to generate value every turn. Like, generally, as Dofi faces the place, we most of the time want to swing at face. But there are a lot of cards in the game that exist where it's like they demand your attention. 3 cost Brook, Cavendish, Sangoro, Carrot. These are cards that have win attackings that generate value every single turn. And in those situations, they do demand that you address them. But Sangoro, you don't even really care about it. It's just a vanilla 7K. Like, all you have right now is, 2 rested bodies. Next turn, he has to play on curve. He swings 5 at one of them. You block with the boa. He swings 7 at your 5. You lose 1 body to the Sangoro. You still have 3 on board. You gave up no cards in hand, or you 2K 1K, which is also very reasonable. And, like, your opponent is, like, sick because you swung 7 at their life last turn, and now you just untapped with potentially 4 characters, and you just swing at their life crazy, and they're just cooked.
See, I see what you're saying completely.
Mm-hmm.
I completely agree.
Mm-hmm. Did anything that I said you wanted a little bit more clarification on, or any part of my thought process there that you'd like a little bit more explanation on?
So, what I'm hearing is
Mm-hmm.
I think the pressure of seeing 2 small blockers
Mm-hmm.
is not allowing me to see what I should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
I am fixated with those 2 blockers,
Mm-hmm.
which at the end of the day, if he uses it, cool. If not, cool.
Yeah.
They're not going to do anything. They're
They
just
don't
going to
matter.
stand
Yeah.
there.
They don't matter.
They don't matter. And I think that was kind of my problem in this matchup,
Mm-hmm.
which I was obsessed with. Like, I just have to get rid of those blockers.
Mm-hmm.
The only time that I should be worrying about blockers
Mm-hmm.
is when I'm going for lethal
Yeah.
and I need a gravity blade to
Mm-hmm.
gravity blade them,
Mm-hmm.
or a bounce law to
Mm-hmm.
bounce the blocker and then swing.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case scenario, I have to build the whiteboard and just swing.
Yeah. Yeah. These blockers,
Establish.
they don't matter. They're awful. They're not good. They don't do anything. They just sit there.
Yeah.
So
And I
something.
think that
Mhm,
that's why I got fixated in
mhm,
that disrupted my whole thought process,
mhm,
because I think that you have, and that's one of the things that I'm trying to establish in our conversations. You have such a strong process thought that this is what's supposed to do, and I'm only going to be flexible in certain occasions
mhm,
where I'm trying to be flexible all the time.
mhm,
I need to always have a plan that I go to and back to, and that plan has to have questions
mhm,
regarding the gameplay and the game state. And this is kind of where I see, okay, I fucked up.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Like, the game bends around Dofi. We are the winners. We are the best deck. They have to bend to us. So unless they give us a reason to have to, like, change what we're doing to bend to them, like, we just do what we do, and we say, like, hey, there's a reason why my deck is the best. I'm going to do the thing that makes it the best, and you have to prove to me that that's not a winning strategy this game. And then we can adjust.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
That, wow.
Yeah. Because, like, Pluffy hates playing versus Dofi. You flip it over and they groan. And why do they do that? They do that because on our 8 Dawn turn, we're going to swing 7 5 times. And they can't handle it. They can't handle when it's your 7 on turn and you swing 7 5 times. Like they're just sick. They're sick to their stomach. Um,
Exactly.
mhm,
And in order to do that, I need bodies, and I need those bodies to stay there.
mhm,
And I just need to start building them.
mhm. Okay. So another thing I wanted to get a little insight in. So give me the exact way you stack this deck, these three, and why. Because I actually think this is important.
So I think I did law,
Mm-hmm.
bounce law
Mm-hmm.
first,
Mm-hmm.
and then Sengoku,
Mm-hmm.
and then 2K counter law.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
way,
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna draw the Sengoku,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I'm gonna bounce the Sengoku back to my hand and
Mm-hmm.
bounce the one of the blockers.
Mm-hmm.
That way, if I want to, I can do again Sengoku to search for other answers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like you said, to think about what I should done, what
Mm-hmm.
I should have done, and what I did, I'm kind of hesitant to say I did this, but if I with what I've learned right now, that's what I should have done.
And just for context, whenever I ask you like what you're thinking or anything, I always want you to tell me like right now. I don't care what you did in the game necessarily.
Perfect.
Um, like if I ask you like what are you thinking, I don't want to know about this game. I want to know about like right now as we're sitting, as we have time to think about it, like what is your thought process in this moment. And I do agree with you, law Sengoku law, so like bounce law Sengoku 2K law. And um, one of the big reasons actually, which I didn't hear you talk about, is we want to be able to think about like, okay, what are we gonna counter with, right? So like we know what our opponent is gonna play next turn. He's gonna play on curve, whatever it is, and he's gonna swing 5 and he's gonna swing 7, right? We agree that that's just basically always happening.
Yes.
Okay. So if he swings 5 and he swings 7, we're gonna most of the time give up a 2k 1k because we just have like infinite counter in our hand. We're gonna block and then we're gonna 2k 1k. If our opponent is dumb, he'll swing into our 6 and then we only have to give up a 2k. But with our hand having, it will have 8 cards in hand, he's always swinging at the 5, not at the 6 if he has any brain. um, so we can actually decide what we're going to counter with based on the way we're stacking our deck right now. So we know we're bouncing this Sengoku and we don't need 2 Sengoku. So we can actually, there's nothing else in our hand that we're thrilled to counter with. Like we're not thrilled to counter with the Teach, we're not thrilled to counter with the Law, we're not thrilled to counter with the Gecko, we're not thrilled to counter with the Jinbei. So by bouncing this Sengoku and having this Sengoku be the next draw, what we're doing is we're having a new card in our hand that we can counter with without actually losing it. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're gonna have to.
Mm-hmm. Because we're gonna have to. So like when we're stacking our deck, a lot of players what they'll do, and I'm glad you didn't do this. Maybe you didn't do it just because of like the specific cards. Um, but like a lot of players they'll like push up the 2k to be the draw almost always because they're like I want a 2k, like I'm not going to play that card next turn anyways. Like some players might see this and say like, "Hey, I don't need to draw the Sengoku. I already have one. I'll just draw the Law because the Law is a 2k and 2ks are good to have in hand." You didn't have that, thankfully, but something to think about, because sometimes that logic does apply where it's like you want to draw the 2k, but we also want to think about like why do we want the 2k, right? And in this exact
Yes.
game state we know, hey, I actually don't need that 2k yet. I have all these other 2ks in hand. It's better I draw 1k and then I'll have that 2k for later, right? So just something I wanted to talk about briefly because you've emphasized that you really want to talk about like the steps and why we're doing things. I thought that could be something important for us to talk about.
Brother, you are a dream. Like for real. Everything that we're doing is exactly what I asked.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think that going slow
Mm-hmm.
is an issue for me.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, this is exactly what I needed.
Mm-hmm.
And in the amount of notes that I'm writing,
Mm-hmm.
you don't even know. Like every
Awesome.
single time there's a question that I'm like, I should have these like I should have like a little thing in my head. Like
Mm-hmm.
I should be asking these questions every single time.
Mm-hmm.
When I
Awesome.
draw, these are the questions. When I attack, these are the questions.
Mm-hmm.
That way they just become automatic.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Okay. So yep, you stack. Oh, so see, you actually didn't. You did. See, you did the thing. You did
So,
the thing where you're like, I want to draw the
but
2K.
yeah, I like I said, there's some things that I know I could have done a
Mm-hmm.
lot better,
Mm-hmm.
but I did this wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that is, it's a minor thing. I don't think you lost this game because you drew the 2K one turn early. I think like this right here, attacking the Sanji is like a way bigger problem. Like I think like we want to demand two cards from our opponent, not just one. Okay, so he plays 9 mom. So yep, he's gonna swing 5. Okay, so what are you thinking here?
I was thinking, okay, so so I was pointing out the gecko
Mm-hmm.
because in my head is like if he attacks one of my cards, I will bring it back with the gecko,
Mm-hmm.
and then I can use it this time to teach. So I can do teach. I'm thinking, okay, so if I block, which card should I use?
Mm-hmm.
I think I used the Sengoku,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just thinking, okay, maybe then next turn, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to use the gecko to bring something back, and then I'm going to use the Blackbeard in order to utilize that card. Uh, this is I think I let go of the law because
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking how many cards is he going to how many cards do I have to use in order to protect the law?
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't protect the law and he dies, then he's forced to swing into my Weeble, which is
Mm-hmm.
just a simple 2K counter.
Mm-hmm.
My problem in this play is that I thought that I didn't have a law in my hands, which I do. It's
Mm-hmm.
right next to the gecko.
Mm-hmm.
I like I said, I got myself in automatic mode,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of like when I did the gecko, because you're gonna see that I do the gecko, I was like, oh, I do have a law.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Like what's exactly because I was obsessed with the blocker and I wanted to bounce the blocker back in.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said before, this was so unnecessary and I was just wasting my time doing all of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So again, I just want to emphasize this because just the way that you're phrasing what you're saying, I'm not actually interested in you explaining to me what you did in this game. I actually don't care
Okay.
at all what you did in this game. I just want to hear right now, what do you think you should do? When you're watching this right now, what do you think is the correct play? And like walk me through that thought process.
So if for the amount of cards that I need to
Mm-hmm.
protect the law,
Mm-hmm.
I would still do the let it die, and
Mm-hmm.
then he's going to be swinging into my Weeble, and then I just give a 2K counter.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have to spend a lot of cards.
Mm-hmm.
In another way to see this and how we've been talking about it, if I would have let the law live
Mm-hmm.
and I would have given him one, two, three cards,
Mm-hmm.
then I would have been able to swing 7, 7, 7, 7 with the leader.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that I think that would have been the most optimal play because then I put pressure into him,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I I could have. That's how I see it right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's an argument for either letting it die or keeping it. Because I agree with you. If we let it die, he's going to swing into the Weevil. We're just going to give a 2K. The reason why I think there's an argument for either one is like we have 7 Dawn next turn, so we could just go like 3 7s, play the teach, play Gecko, Gecko grab back something, which is pretty strong. But because we also have the Jinbei, there's like an argument where we can just like let this die. We can like use a 2K for the Weevil, and then we can go like teach, Jinbei Gecko, and then like we lose out on swinging 1/7, but we get to keep a card ourselves, or we get to keep like a couple cards that we didn't waste on like protecting this. So like honestly, I'm pretty okay either way. I think I probably personally, the thing is we don't have like a ton of 1Ks that we're like happy to get rid of here. Like if we want to protect this, it's going to take the Sengoku, the Mihawk, and then probably like a second Mihawk. And
Yeah.
like the fact that we don't have another 1K that we're like happy to give away, I probably would just let this die. But like if someone wanted to protect it because they wanted to like be more aggressive, I understand that, and I don't think it's like objectively wrong. I think that's like pretty fine because I will say swinging 7 4 times next turn is like pretty nasty, especially if we had like swung 7 last turn at him. Like the amount of pressure we'd be creating, like he'd be sick to his stomach. Um, so
So
I think
I
I
want to share
would
something
probably
with
let
you.
it die, but it's not the worst to protect it either.
So going back to it, and I'm sorry that
Mm-hmm.
I'm still trying to figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
In the case scenario that we see that in this turn, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have as much counter as I
Mm-hmm.
have,
Mm-hmm.
which I am way. I have a lot of resources to
A ton.
defend,
Mm-hmm.
and put that pressure into him.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only thing is that because I don't have what's the card that I'm because I don't have the perfume,
Mm-hmm.
I rushing to get him to 0 life
Mm-hmm.
is it's okay, but at the same time isn't. So going
Mm-hmm.
with the argument of like let's defend him and then swing 4 times 7,
Mm-hmm.
he is going to utilize one of the blockers. So it's blocker and 2 lives and maybe 2 cards from hand.
Yeah, probably.
Probably. But I don't know what my deck is. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what the next 5 cards are. So, doing blind leader would be kind of bad. And I don't have any Peronas or any buggies.
Mm-hmm.
So, thinking about it, just trying to rush down to get him to 0 life without knowing what my next card is
Mm-hmm.
could be a little bit overkill.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think letting it go and just giving a 2K and planning the next turns would be a little bit best by playing that Blackbeard.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm gonna go with your argument.
Mm-hmm.
Just
The,
let it go and defend it.
something I will say is I don't think you should worry about if you have perfume or not in this matchup. Like Pluffy doesn't know you don't have access to perfume here, so like he has to play around it anyways. So it actually doesn't matter that you don't have it. Like you being aggressive, he's gonna have to respect that aggression anyways. So like it's a little different than like Lucci, where Lucci you kind of need it because like if you don't have it, they just like play Gecko, which like establishes a blocker while removing your stuff, and then like they kill you the next turn. Whereas like Pluffy, the only blockers they can really play are like Kid and like Onami, and like if they're doing that, they're not really establishing a ton of pressure. So like they don't really get to set up for killing you the following turn. And also like they have to respect the perfume anyway. So like in this matchup I just wouldn't worry about like if I have femur or not changing the way I play the game necessarily.
I see. I see.
Mhm. But yeah, we can continue this. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and either let it die or counter. Really, either one's fine. Okay, it looks like you're gonna. Um, Honestly, actually, this is pretty reasonable too. We can counter out of the 5, and then he's gonna swing 7. This is actually pretty good because he's gonna swing 7 here anyways, and we just get to keep a 2K. Like that's actually super reasonable.
And then I'm separating my Dawn there to
Hmm.
do the.
Oh. Okay, so what is your plan for what do you what is your I guess we kind of already talked about what I thought we should do this turn, so I guess I'll just
I
watch
did
what you
six,
do. Mhm.
so I did sixes,
Mhm.
and instead of sevens,
Mhm.
and then I did I played the gecko, and then I was like, oh, dude, I'm a dumbass.
Yeah, okay. So this was just like this was an incredible throw for a ton of different reasons.
Yeah. Yes.
Um like
Okay.
like so effectively this turn we spent um 7 mana to play 3 characters, and actually we're only going to play 2 characters. We're going to spend 7 mana to play a Teach and a Gecko and bounce their Robin. Um which is just awful for us. Like, this Robin is not a real card. Like, we could have just spent that mana swinging at them and like we would get rid of the Robin permanently, right? Like, bouncing the Robin is worse than just forcing them to block with it, which, like, if we swung a bunch of sevens, like you agreed earlier, like they would have blocked with it. Whereas like when we bounce it, first of all, we're not establishing a body, and second of all, they get to keep like the 1k counter. So it's just like infinitely worse for us than them just using to block. So that's the first thing. The second thing is like we're not even establishing a body. Like we're spending 7 Dawn to not even establish a body. Whereas if all we did was play Teach, stack Jinbei play Moria, we would have played 10 cost worth of characters for 1 Dawn, which is just like cheating. Like the Luffy player, like they would just be pissed. He would literally be typing in chat, "Wow, 3 Jinbei, so lucky, GG," and they just concede. Like they'd actually just concede on the spot. And then like again, we're swinging 7 at this Sanji, which like our opponent is already in an awful position. Like when we do this, we're just healing him 2k counter. Like there's no reason to do this. Like we're just like anytime you swing a number bigger than 5 into something that's bigger than 5 instead of the leader, think about it as like you are healing them a 2k counter in their hand in this situation. Like you swing 7 into 7, he gets to keep a 2k. Like if you swung 7 at life, like over the course of the game, he has to counter those 7s at life. But if you swing 7 at 7, he doesn't. There's like one less swing over the course of the game that he has to do it. So you're giving him a 2k. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I see it so clearly right now, and I feel so ashamed.
It's okay. That's why we do this. You know, that's exactly why we do this. But do you kind of
So
like you see what I'm walking through with this turn?
yes, so part of like and what I'm trying to do is whatever you say, I'm trying to bring it back to my own words, but I'm trying
Mm-hmm.
to say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Pedro,
Mm-hmm.
you're allowing the opponent to keep a 2K by not swinging 7
Mm-hmm.
or by not swinging a little bit more. You had 7 Dawn,
Mm-hmm.
and you could have easily built a wider board, which you have now the counter to protect 4 characters.
Mm-hmm.
And you decided to you don't not do it. So
Mm-hmm.
in the future, make sure that you're going to optimize your plays because you had the opportunity to optimize the play here
Mm-hmm.
at the gym base.
Mm-hmm.
If not, play a 6,000 power body,
Mm-hmm.
which that will be even better if I had a bar, if I had another wheel. But because I had the gym base, just build the board, swing tall, and don't worry about the blocker. Just let him decide.
Yeah.
You just putting the plate in front of him like blocker or 2K.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you don't have 2K, then blocker. Again, 7. You don't have a 2K, then give me 3 1Ks
Mm-hmm.
or take a life.
Yeah.
So
Like
you want to put him in that. Those are the positions that you want to put him. And I did not do that.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Like here we could have gone 7, 8, 8, end our turn 5 wide, and also like swing here, so like he's gonna be forced to block. Like if we're going 7, 8, 8, like he has to block. Um, and instead of going 7, 7, 8, being 5 wide and permanently removing this blocker, we made him barely even have to counter because we swung 6, 6, 7, and then like we're not even ending 5 wide, and we're giving him this blocker to hand, and we're only swinging here. Like it's just actually just a crazy throw, actually just an unbelievable throw. Yeah, like it's actually insane that you lose this game. It's actually just genuinely insane. Like, imagine if we did what we did last turn and our opponent tried to play Sanji this turn. He actually would just be dead because we would have swung so aggressively at life that he would be at like either 0 life or 1 life with no cards in hand, and we actually just kill him on the spot. And also, we have one more character on the board. And he wouldn't have this blocker because he would have been forced to block. Like, the situation would just be crazy for us. Okay, so once we're here, what are you thinking?
So I spent 3 cards to save the Weevil,
Mm-hmm.
and that goes back to one of the questions that you were asking. Which cards, which character are you going to protect because he's going to ask of um, your opponent?
Mm-hmm.
And what I should do right now is go with 7/7. I have 10 Dawn, but I also could easily do the Jinbei Law. But I could do Sengoku first, Jinbei Law, bounce the blocker, then start swinging sevens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that a lot. The Sengoku gives us a good idea of where we're at. And we just keep like he only has 3 cards in hand. Like there's a chance. I mean, this isn't ever happening, but there's a chance that we swing sevens 3 times and he actually just dies this turn. Like he could just be bricked up and he just dies on the spot. That's realistically that's
Sure.
never actually happening. Okay, sorry. Pardon the scream of my girlfriend playing with the dog. Um, anyways, um, we could, they could theoretically die. They won't. But even if they don't die, we're gonna put them at like no cards. Like we're gonna swing 7. Let's say they take. We're gonna swing 7. Let's say they take. We're gonna swing 7. They counter. They're down to 3 cards in hand, no life, and we have 2 standing characters. Um, they just they just die. They actually just die next turn, right? Oh
Yes.
no.
So that's kind of.
Yeah. That's crazy. We had the Sengoku as the free bounce and we
Yeah.
didn't even take it. That was crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. Um
I think that
oh
what
no.
I
And
was.
now we're going back for board. Brother, just kill him. Just kill him. He can just die. He can just die, brother. Oh my god. I mean, the thing is, we're still not even in like the worst position ever, but like he should actually just die next turn. Really, he should have probably died that turn. Like we probably would have
Yeah.
just killed him on that turn that we just had if we had been playing aggressively the whole game. Um,
Which I don't know what happened in my eyes.
okay.
There's another match against Bluefy that I recorded, which I think I implemented a little bit more of aggressive
Mm-hmm.
and not having that obsession with bouncing things back to his hand, uh, which I won.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what happened to me in this match. I feel
This is crazy. Our opponent just passed with 9 open dawn and we lose this game. There's
I
just
swung
no way. There's
I
just no.
swung
You just like played crazy in the gum gum, I'm guessing.
yeah,
Yeah.
I swung 10 and then 10.
Like when he does this, like we know it's because like he doesn't have playable cards, which if he doesn't have playable cards, it means he just has gum gum. So he's just hoping you swing 10-10. Like it would be a lot better for us to just try and go wide with like Sengoku, Jinbei. Um, just establish bodies and just like he only has 3 cards in hand at this point. Like if you swing 5-5, even if all you did was swing 5-5, like one of two things is happening. Like either you're putting him to 0 and you're putting him to 3 cards in hand, which is, and like you're gonna end this turn with like 5 characters on board because you're gonna have this Jinbei and Sengoku's gonna find you something. So like either that's gonna happen or he's gonna like like use a gum and that's like so disgusting for him when you're swinging 5. Like we can kind of read
Yeah.
that his hand is like actually just nothing. It's actually there's nothing in there besides like gum and counter. So it's like if we just say like, okay, if that's all you're gonna have in your hand, if you're not gonna have playable cards, then I'll just swing 5 twice and I'll take some of those, and then next turn I'll have like infinite cards to swing at you. Okay, so he top decked the Lin, and now we just lose because
Yeah,
we swung 10-10 instead of like going wide. Like if we went wide instead, he would have like basically the same number of cards, but we would have like
I would have a
you would
fuller
have
board, yeah,
yeah, you'd
and
have
then
a
I could
fuller
go
board.
per game at this.
Yeah. So like
I definitely can see it, yeah.
this is one of the impressive games where we can look back and we can say, wow, we actually misplayed almost every single part of the game.
Yeah.
Like what turn did we do correctly? Did we do a single turn right?
Yes, we did. Until six dawn. At six dawn,
Oh,
and
six on. Yeah,
that's
six
where
on. We well,
six dawn.
six
I
on.
played
We
and
swung into
well,
the Sanji,
the end
bro.
of sixth dawn. Yes, at the end of the sixth dawn, that's where I was like,
Yeah,
"What is wrong with me?"
yeah. I don't think we played a single turn correctly.
Yeah, this was, I think, the best way to showcase how to not play with Doku.
Hmm. I think this was fabulous. I think we were able to really. I think this was a great replay to go over. We were able to really hone in on a lot of fundamentals and a lot of things that
Yes.
like will always translate. Because like the truth is, this game was like unwinnable or unlosable. I can't even begin to believe you lost this game. Like if you talk about like the things your Pluffy player wants to do, he didn't do any of them. Like on 4, he wants to play Zoro, he didn't do that. On 7, he wants to play Luffy Taro, he didn't do that. He I guess he got to play the 9 mom on this turn, but like even that is like not really what he loves to do. He'd rather keep the 9 mom for like a later turn when he's lower in life and has more cards and you've committed more. So like even the 9 mom, like it's fine here, but it's not even like exactly what he wants to do. And then like this turn he like plays another Sanji, which is not exactly what he wants, and then like eventually he just like turn skips himself, bro. He literally has 9 Dawn. How do we lose this game? Oh my
I
goodness.
ha- I have an impressive way of doing things wrong.
Yeah, that was all right. Well, that was great. I think that was like of all the games I've gotten to watch with my coaches, I think that's one of the best ones for like really diving in and like why do we
Yes,
do
yes.
things and how do we find ways to lose the unlosable, and why don't we do those things? So
We
you
should like you
Mhm.
should say like he really tried to lose this match
Yeah.
consciously.
he tried his
He tried
absolute
so hard.
hardest. Yeah. Give me just 1 second. I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick and I'll be right back.
Yes, sir. No problem.
Okay, I'm back. So you wanted to do the Blackbeard game next, is that correct?
Yeah, because I felt like I did a couple of misplays on
Mm-hmm.
this one,
Mm-hmm.
but at the end I won because
Because the
think
matchup
that
is
he
super
did not
favored for Dofi.
because of that, and he did not do the math correctly. And even doing the math correctly, I think he would have lost.
Okay.
But
Okay, so looking at this opening hand going second, how are you feeling?
I was feeling good because I had a Sengoku. But I did want to find a Perona because with the Perona, I'm able to use Leader's Effect
Mm-hmm.
a little bit better. So I think I did mulligan this hand.
You actually kept.
Okay, so
What I would say is I personally would like a mulligan there. I think the two most important cards in the matchup are Perona and Gravity Blade, and we didn't have either. It's okay to not have either if going second we have double one drop, but we didn't have double one drop. We also didn't have Teach. Like, we didn't really have anything that we super want other than Sengoku, and I don't think Sengoku is like winning us the game. It's just like a good card. So I think honestly that was a snap mulligan. However, we did draw into the gravity blade, so like that's actually pretty amazing for us. Here, to be honest, it doesn't even matter what we grab. Um, like they're all gonna be vanillas anyways. 6, yep, we take for sure. Um, okay, he black holed us. Um, I think there's like really
so
only one play here. We just have to like play a 4-drop swing 5. I
yeah,
I don't think there's an
I think I
argument.
just swung 5. Yeah.
Yeah, swing 5, play a 4-drop. Oh, okay. So we're gambling. I don't love this. I don't love this. I think we should just play a 4-drop, honestly.
So what I was thinking, I
Mm-hmm.
think, um, was okay. If I play a card, he's gonna pop it with the
Mm-hmm.
dot Q.
Mm-hmm.
But I think now I see, hey, just play the card. It doesn't matter, um, because you don't know exactly what's happening next.
Mm-hmm.
And doing leader blind, it's a gamble, and I should not do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, something that I really want to emphasize is like Dofi bends every other deck. Every other deck has to bend to Dofi. Like, do you think he's excited for you to play a 4-drop? No. Does he want to pop your 4-drop? No. He has to. He has to do it. So, like, if you make it so he doesn't have to do it, like a situation like this, where we blind leader effect and like now um, he doesn't have to do the thing that he has to do. What he does get to do is he gets to go Lafitte, Doc Q, pop your Sengoku, swing 5, play Burgess. And that is like infinitely worse for you than if he went, you know, Van Auger, Doc Q, pop your 4. Like him establishing the Burgess while popping your Sengoku, while getting a free search is just like actually like 10 million times worse for you than you playing a 4-drop from your hand and him popping it. It's like, okay, sure. Like that makes sense. Like you have to do that. That's fine. But like if he gets like his 5 down turn shouldn't be that good. And I don't know, maybe he won't find the Burgess. Maybe this Lafitte like whiffs and he doesn't get the free +1. I don't know what happens this turn, but like if you allow him to have that sort of turn, that's like how you find a way to lose these games.
Yes.
Because like Teach wants to play Burgess. Burgess is like unbelievably uber broken. Um, but like he generally doesn't have a lot of great turns to play it versus Doflamingo because he has to chase our board over and over and over and over again. But if we give him an opportunity to not chase our board, then he gets to do like, stuff like that. Okay, I mean we got like our opponent's an idiot. Like he played this and then did the search and found the Burgess. Like he could have just done the turn that I said and like he just is in an incredible spot and instead he's gonna do like this Lafitte thing, which is like pretty mid. Like this is fine for him. I think it would have been better for him to just like play a Burgess, honestly, but it's fine. Okay. This is a problem. for a few different reasons. I think the reason why you countered with this Perona was you think he has two dock Qs and you don't want them to get free pops on your Perona, which is true. However, those dock Qs aren't going to exist forever because we are eventually going to either swing over them or gravity blade them. And just having a one drop later in the game can be really good. Like there's certain turns like later in the game where just having a one drop is really good because you want to be able to play as many one drops as possible. So that's like a
The
small
other
thing.
thing that I,
Mm-hmm.
the other thing that I was thinking is I know that Teach wants me to he wants to start swinging,
Mm-hmm.
and then when he gets to the late game, he's just going to have big bodies that I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to be able to counter.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can counter those 5K swings at the beginning that are just little hits in the face
Mm-hmm.
that add up in the future,
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about that too.
Mm. Oh yeah, I didn't even mention the other reason why I didn't like this counter. I forgot. Thank you for reminding me. We should be pretty comfortable going to 3. Like, I
Okay.
understand what you're saying. Where like later in the game, like his Burgess and his Teach are going to be really huge, and those are difficult to deal with because like they're so big. But like 3 is kind of the comfort zone. You don't want to go below 3. Absolutely, you don't want to go below 3. But like 3 is like a pretty reasonable place for us to go.
Okay.
Um, 5 at the dock queue.
And then I play a 4 and a 1.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like imagine if we had the Perona to go with it. I think I like swinging
Yeah.
at the dock queue if we had the Perona, but because we threw away the Perona, I think swinging at the dock queue probably doesn't matter very much. Like, I guess we do get to keep the Sengoku, so yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, I see how this is a game that we could have lost. This is not going the way we would love for it to go. Okay. So 8 done.
So I did.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to establish the Josu,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I swung into or the Lafitte or the Duck U, and then I swung into the Laboon, and then established a big body like
The Josu.
the Josu for
Mm-hmm.
later on to
Mm-hmm.
start swinging.
Yeah, I think if we want to play the Josu, we absolutely have to kill both of these. Like if either of them stick, it's just pretty easy for our Josu to die. Uh,
Right. That's why I wanted I thought, okay, maybe I had played 2 for costs. Oh,
oh,
wait,
this is
wait.
awful. This
I
is
did.
this is
I
awful. Wow, you
I
win this
did play
game?
the.
This is insane
Yes, I
that you
did
win
play
this
this.
game. This is actually bonkers that you win this game. Wow. I mean, it helps that our opponent also threw on that one turn. Like that's pretty hyped for us. So I guess I kind of understand how we win, but like it is crazy that we win this game actually. Yeah, like he should have already had a Burgess on board to like start creating pressure. Um yeah, and he doesn't remove our 4 drop. Okay. So this turn I feel like there's only one thing we can do, but I want to hear what you think we should do.
I think I did the Josu and play a forecast. And what I should do right now
Mhm.
is have to get rid of the Lafitte's
Mhm.
because I don't want to keep him having value out of it.
Yeah.
Even though if he gets a tendon, like he's not going to be able to use the Lafitte's, so they become kind of a pseudo blocker. But getting rid of them is good, so he doesn't keep getting that value.
Mhm.
But I do need to establish 2 bodies. So playing the Josu and then playing the Weevil would be a good play.
Mhm.
Then way I could um, work uh, into his life in the next turns.
Okay. Yeah,
Like
I'm
right
I'm
now,
cool with
seeing
that.
it. Oh,
Yeah, I'm cool with that. We swing 5 into the Lafitte's, and then we
mm-hmm,
go Jozu Weevil. Yeah, I'm cool with that. I think the other option is we
mm-hmm.
could Gravity Blade these two, swing 7 blind, but we can probably just do that next turn. So yeah, I'm cool with going 5-5, uh, and then Weevil end. Yep. I'm super cool with that actually. Because he's gonna play Van Augur most likely. I don't love playing the 2K. Like, just get the brick out of your hand, honestly. Um, yeah, so we can just let that die and then take this 8. That's fine. And then, what are you thinking this turn?
Then I think I should have done the gravity blade in that spot. I don't think I did. I think I added a Dawn into the Mihawk and I swung, or I think I swung really tall into the. It's not about what I did; it's about what I should be doing right
what you
now.
think you should do right now. Yeah.
So right now, I think the best play would be put the Weeble, put the Djembe, go wide again, because now that he has that 10 cost teach, I do need to start swinging at him, or I could gravity blade and then do leader a bit, leader effect blindly, and then swing 7, and don't swing with the Mihawk. Just have 2 bodies that are standing.
I think maybe we can wait on the gravity blade. I kind of think like we're in a stage where this doc Q, like one of two things is going to happen. Either he's going to continue playing 10 drops, which means this doc Q doesn't matter, or he's going to play like a Van Augur or something to pair with the doc Q. And I kind of think either way, we don't have to fire off this gravity blade here. Like, if the doc Q is never going to do anything again, because, like, he's just going to play 10 cost teach, then it doesn't really matter to get rid of it. And, like, using a 7 to bottom a 4, like, just the math is not mathing. So I think we can hold off on the gravity blade. I kind of like the idea of I want us to swing this Mihawk. And I know, like, you don't want to swing it because you want to be super wide, but, like, we swing leader first, and we see if he blocks or not. If he blocks, then we swing it. If he doesn't block, then we don't swing it. But
That's a good assessment, yeah.
So.
No. I would say, like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so I think I would swing 5. And if he blocks, then I'll swing 6 and get the draw 2 trash 2. And if he doesn't block and he counters or he takes, I'll be like, okay, that's fine, and I'll just go like 4-4-1 pass. Well, maybe we don't play the 1 because he has the doc Q. Yeah, we actually probably don't play the 1 because he has the doc Q. Okay, so I'd swing 6 with leader. Because I'd go 6-6 because of this doc Q existing. Do we play the 1?
Okay.
I don't think we play the 1 actually. So yeah, I think I'd just play 2 4s. Swing this first to see if he blocks. If he does block, then we can swing this. If he doesn't, it's fine. Oh, what are you doing? You're swinging at teach for 9? Because you're going to swing 10 at it? So, like, you see how, like, here we're using all of our Dawn to, like, swing into something that we could have just, like, bottom decked anyways? Like, if you care about the Jesus that much, like, we could have just gotten rid of it permanently.
No, I 100% agree with that.
You sound kind of far away again.
Can you hear me? 1, 2, 3. I just went to the kitchen to get a drink.
Oh, okay, okay. No worries.
So yes, I think that in that moment, I'm deciding not to play the game as a Delphi player, which I don't need to be removing stuff, and that's kind of the thing that I have to get rid of. I don't need to be fighting the board. I need to go wide and put the aggression in the board.
100%. 100%. Where you're not playing Lucci. You know, the board, you have to be okay with him having a board. Like it's not a big deal.
Yeah,
Um,
that's why I wanted to give you background of what I do.
mm-hmm,
That way, it just makes sense why I struggle with this.
mm-hmm. For sure. For sure. I completely understand. We still, for whatever reason, seem to not want to play two characters. I guess you just decided you were gonna hit. You were like, it's fine. I'll just blind hit, which you did. So you know, kudos to you. That's awesome.
I won this matchup because of luck,
Yeah, for sure. You won
and because
because of luck and because he played poorly, in my opinion.
misplayed. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So that's why I explained to you at the beginning, like I could go against a beginner or an intermediate
Mm-hmm,
player and be okay.
mm-hmm.
It is not okay when I'm playing against somebody that understands what he is doing,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when I'm like, oh,
Like
well, I lack.
even here, we can tell our opponent has no idea what he's doing. He has two 12K swings that he could swing over these bodies, and like you're just not going to be able to counter out of them. But instead of like permanently removing the bodies, he's like, I'll use them to block the bodies. Like here, our opponent has no idea what he's doing. Like we're playing versus someone who's like just learning the game clearly. Um, okay. I guess the gravity blade is fine there. We're getting rid of a blocker. 6/6. Draw 2. We got to get rid of these bricks because we could die next
Yes,
turn.
yes, that's what I was thinking.
Oh, you didn't get rid of both though.
Oh, I got
So what is our opponent's best numbers? They're like 10. Okay, is there any numbers where we die? Oh, no, he can go 11, 12, 12, 13. And if he did that, we could die depending on if these are bricks or not.
yeah, he could go 11, 11,
Mm-hmm.
11, 12, 12, 12.
Uh,
But then he just, but I do
oh,
have,
11, 12, 12, 12, yeah.
yeah,
And you wouldn't be able to counter out of the 11. So now you have to find counter, which to be fair, you're almost always finding counter here, but like if you didn't, you could he's just choosing random numbers. He's randomly generating them. He's literally
and that's when
randomly.
I used the trigger. Yeah,
I don't even think you have to. You don't even have to trigger it here. Because like you know mathematically you can't die. Like his only swings
yes,
are 12 and 10.
10, 12, 10.
Yeah,
Yes.
which you can counter out of. So you actually aren't supposed to trigger this here, which you correctly did not. So that's awesome. Yeah. Our opponent, genuinely, we won this game because even though we misplayed a bunch, like our opponent just had no idea what he was doing.
So then a lot of the matches that I recorded is because I'm winning because my opponent is an idiot.
For sure, at like low and even mid rated, like opponents are just, they're trying to learn the game. That's all it is. They're people who have not quite gotten to a high level yet, and they're trying to, which is perfectly reasonable. Um,
No, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to
mhm,
go from understanding a little bit the game to mastering the game.
mhm,
Um, it's gonna take time,
mhm.
but I wanted to ask you if we could leave it until right now because
Yeah,
I gotta go to therapy at
yep,
7,
yep. Let's
and
do it.
I have taken the 2 hours already out of
Yep.
your time, and I don't want to exceed.
Yeah,
I
let's
want you
call
to
it here.
like, I want you to like teaching me and be like, yeah, let's do it again.
Mhm.
You,
Yeah. Yeah, let's call it here. I hope this session was helpful for you. I know we only got 2 games done. This is like the least number of games I've ever been been able to get through, but I think we were able to like really dive into the nitty gritty.
Yes, and I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna record some more matches on the ladder,
Hmm.
which I think they're a little bit better players,
Hmm.
and then that way it's we let's see if what we talked about today really landed.
I hope so. I really hope so.
That way we can continue on this path
Hmm.
and get better.
Yeah, absolutely. And keep me updated. I definitely want to see you succeed. So, my DMs are always open. Always feel free to reach out with to me for, for anything if you have any questions or if you just want to, I'd love to hear about even something as simple as how locals goes. So, I definitely want to see you succeed.
Hey, thank you, brother. I
Mhm.
do appreciate everything that you did today.
Mhm.
And do you have any other questions for me?
No, no, I'm good to go. I appreciate your time.
No, I appreciate so much what you did today,
Mm.
and and just let me know when we can meet up again. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely. I
Oh,
will I will be gone the rest of this week, but I should be available again next week. I can let you know later in this week.
alrighty, bro.
All right,
Hey,
awesome.
big hug, and talk to you soon. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Have a good one.
Have a good one,
All
brother.
right, bye bye.